Hold on, Chad, hold on. I gotta just post on social media. I didn't submit, but it's okay, because Jake will forgive me, he understands. If you don't submit, you just don't even exist to me. So it's not like I've forgiven you, I just don't know who you are. The only thing that matters in this world are the submitters and the critiquer. That's the cruel way of this sick and twisted world. All right, everybody. You know what time it is. You know what the frick time it is. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Jake Don't Draw live stream Super Show Experience Extravaganza Bonanza. That's right, you heard it here first. There is 2 chats on the screen. Why is there 2? What was that? We're back with the Extravaganza Bonanza. Not even 2 chats are going to hold us back. We are critiquing the figure drawings today for the, the bi-weekly. Is it bi-weekly or there's got to be something like that. For the bisexual challenge. We did some figure drawings this week. We're going to critique those. I don't have too much to yap about this morning. I don't have some sort of extended diatribe about glazing or anything. I'm sure that I will have some snarky comments to make about stupid comments on my color video. I hope you all like the color video. It's done phenomenally well, which has been pretty cool. I think I have some more art history stuff on the way because I like making those videos. I only made those videos because, well, to be honest, I got a sponsor offer, and I was like, well, I don't really have to care about how these videos do. So I'm just gonna make a video that I want to make. And turns out when you make videos that you want to make, they end up doing better. It's kind of a tricky position sometimes. Katie made the VTuber model. That's Mod Katie. I commissioned her. I paid her cash money. She did a great job. She did a really good job. Absolutely killed it. Turned out very well. Let me just check over everything here. It's really funny that you can make a video about like why like none of it like really nothing really matters that much with color theory, and that like you can basically, just kind of push things the way that you want, however you want, and then like 90 or maybe not 90% of people. See, this is YouTuber brain rot where like you only remember negative things. But some percentage of people will watch it and just be like, Yeah, but like black makes colors dead. What's going on with the fucking chat today? What the fucking chat is this? I think I know what's up. Oh. One of these is dying. Yeah, there we go. You don't want to use black because it makes colors dead. That video actually encouraged me to do some oil painting. It's been like 5 months since I freaking picked up a paintbrush. And yeah, I kind of just did a sketch for fun last night. It's over here. It's not really a great angle. Just have some like random picture. But it felt really good, and let me just say, can y'all even see what the frick is going on? Let me just say, I decided I'd pull out like just a really wide palette because, well, I was encouraged to have a very big wide palette, because we love big wide, big bellied palettes, and it just seemed more fun. I wanted to kind of push colors in interesting ways. So I got ivory black. This is emerald green, but like I got it from it's Marie's. It's the Master Marie stuff. That, you know, it's the Chinese brand, and it's kind of weird because it's not like it's got white in it. So like I normally really wouldn't buy any colors that have white mixed into it. I don't even know if I knew what it was. I think I just bought it for fun. And then there's a phthalo, and then phthalo green, phthalo blue, ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, alizarin. This is a Purell red. It's not cadmium red, but it's like very, very close. It's the best non-cadmium cadmium red. Purell red or Windsor red for Winsor & Newton. I think that's just what they call their version of it. Yellow ochre, cad yellow, lemon, cad yellow lemon, and then the titanium white. It's a zinc titanium mix. I gotta try out some lead white. I told some people I'd do that. Like trying to switch back to myself, but I didn't switch to myself. I turned the camera. Hello, everybody in chat. I didn't say, you know, hello, Miss Caterpillars, and and Lucia, and Lucas, and Poifo, and Mira, Sifra, Morale, Alexi. Yes, Londonus. Amateur streamer, somebody says. Why don't you just start getting in front of the stream of my piss and tell me that it's amateur? I avoided using black in painting until I realized I had free will. You know what's actually very interesting too is I sent this in the Discord, probably like 5 people watching this actually clicked on that message, but there's an interesting video where the guy mixes, okay, maybe I do have something to yap about. Let me pull it up because it's kind of interesting. Here it is. It's the art nerd guy, the color nerd guy. I think I'm the art nerd guy. Let's move over to our monitor right over here. So this guy, he mixes black, or he tries to darken this Purell red, which is the same thing I just said, actually, coincidentally. He tries to darken this red using different styles of darkening. And in this one, he mixes white into it. I hate how you don't have playback controls on... I must have an extension for that on Chrome. Let's hurry it up, buddy. Apparently Van Gogh, big black fan. Everyone used black, so it's really not a Van Gogh thing. So he tries mixing it with black, gets a very dark, very saturated pigment. This one he tries to neutralize it, make it darker by mixing it with a complement, right? And it does turn out, it's a little bit hard to see in here, but like especially if you're watching on like a phone screen, it does turn out, I think, notably. Oh, yes. Oh, we had it for a second. Dude, I hate web players. It is significantly grayer. It's much more desaturated, actually. So mixing with a complement in the case of red here actually desaturates it, which makes sense because it like pulls it through, you know, the middle of the color wheel, which desaturates it. He tries to mix up a better complement, and that keeps its saturation better, but he has to mix a few pigments to do that. And then this one was mixing it with a really dark red, and then I think he added black at the end to finish it to make it this dark. So mixing it with a really dark red keeps its saturation, but The only thing that like did a good job was just mixing it with black. This is like super gray and washed out, and that's mixing it with a complement. And even this one is like still, it looks like more desaturated than the just mixing it with black. So it's funny that people always say, or people comment like, well, the black, it desaturates it, it makes it a dead color. But then like you actually do some testing and you realize that like mixing it with a complement can actually kill the color, neutralize the color like way more than black can. You know, some of you guys, I'm about to tell some of y'all in the critiques that that you should try painting with less black, because some of you guys are like super desaturated. But you know, it's advice is not for everybody. We give tailored advice up here. Do you like Van Gogh? He's fine. I don't really mind. There's like some, I mean, they're cool paintings, interesting paintings, especially for the time. What's up? You know, some guy coming from the You Suck at Portrait Drawing video. That was a good video. That video like took the soul out of me for like a whole month. All right, guys, let's get into some crits here. Let's get into some crits. Hi, I'm new, says Sanad or Sanad. What's up, Sanad? All right, everybody. So you know how it is. Every 2 weeks, we do new challenge on my Discord. You can join the Discord using the link in the description. If you get an error, you got to read the text box below it and figure it out yourself, because it's a Discord issue, not a me issue. That is the disclaimer for the Discord. It's an age-restricted Discord. If you're under the age of 18, it just doesn't even let you in. And to be honest, I'm totally fine with that. If you're under the age of 18 and you get in anyways, mark yourself as a minor. I don't... Minors should be never seen nor heard. That's my official take. So this challenge, we were doing figure drawing from photo reference. We had a few nice photo references here. These two, which are pretty fun and dynamic in interesting ways. And I ended up throwing a third on there just because I thought this was a cool photo. And I was planning on doing this one, but I did want to challenge myself a little bit more and do a more dynamic one. I was kind of interested in that. That's why I chose the photo originally. We had over about 75 submissions, actually. Pretty cool. That's like one of the biggest ever. One of the biggest ever to do it. Tried to experiment making very specific gamuts, like choosing primary color and defining it as a neutral gray and moving the other primaries alongside it in the color wheel. Kind of tough for me right now. That sounds incredibly hard to keep track of, but that is how you make cool color schemes, by messing with stuff like that. So don't stop doing it. Should all take pictures of our ID and take a selfie for Discord? Yeah, please. Send them to Mod Katie. Credit cards too. The third reference has a penis in it, but I edited it out. So I did this challenge myself, everybody. Here it is. It's 18 by 24. It is a drawing in charcoal, using charcoal and paper stump, Vine charcoal, Conte pencil. I got a Conte pencil right here. It's just the Conte Pure Noir 2B. I use paper stumps that look like this and like this. These ones are, this is like super thick, but to be honest, it's really good. The bigger the better, to be honest. This was the smallest size stump that I went down to. I don't find much use for ones under that. Those ones are taped, but they're stumps. The brand is Milan. Every stump in the world is exactly the same except for this brand called Milan. It's very hard to find this brand Milan for sale in America. You'll only find it online, like imported from Europe, and even then it's quite hard to find shipping to America. So good luck with that. I had someone like bulk order some and give me a bunch. A friend of mine over in the New Salem Museum. Shout out to him. But yeah, I didn't finish. I was gonna do another session this morning. And then I went to the gym and I hit a nasty glute day, all right? I was gonna make a joke, but I'm not gonna make any butt jokes right now. That would be crass. And I'm not crass. So I'm about 6 hours into this, I would say, at the most. pretty fast on my end. Probably the fastest I moved, or at least to this level of completion. And I'm quite happy with it overall. So. It's fast because we use the charcoal and stump, man. If someone asked me, is this graphite? I said, I would never get that done in graphite. Not at 18 by 24 scale. It would just take way too long. The Milan stumps are just like way softer. They're so soft they feel like an airbrush. They feel really nice. Like just in your hands, they feel fuzzy. Every other stump that I've tried a bunch of different brands, every other stump, they're just the same ones made from the same Chinese factories that use the same materials. They're all the same. Milan's the only brand that I found that's actually different. Can I join the next challenge using an A5? Is A5 the size of paper? You can do whatever you want, whenever you want. There's no sort of restrictions for how you follow the challenges. There's no restrictions for how you do it. You can do it whatever medium, whatever size, whatever style. You can make it creative, whatever. You know, when I'm doing these critiques, if you do something that's like super creative and abstracted and stuff, like I just don't have much to say to you. I'm going to critique you on proportion and that type of thing. And I will give you advice like you should draw bigger if you want to, spend longer on a drawing. But if you just want to do them for fun, you also don't get critique, right? Like you only get critique if you submit to the critique channel. We're getting the Stump Tech for free. You see them stores everywhere. Yeah, I guess if you're in America, or if you're in Europe, then maybe Milan is super popular. I had to I actually found those Milan stumps from like a Norway kids hiking supply store that I think like had some like kids craft stuff maybe at some point, and I bought like a ton of them and they shipped them all to America for like pretty cheap. It was just like the most random thing ever I found Googling. Staedtler stumps are smoother than the Chinese ones. Okay, that's cool. I'm not sure I've used the Staedtler ones. I can't remember. I probably have at some point. Charcoal looks great, but the texture makes me gag when using it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that. I'm not sure I can help you. I've heard a couple people say that. It doesn't bother me at all. It is messy, though. It gets fucking everywhere. Does laid paper matter? Yes, the laid paper does matter. I do use, while I'm in my yap zone here, the best paper is this stuff, Arches MBM. You're gonna have to screenshot this. I'm gonna delete it in a second. Arches MBM laid paper. They make a 130 GSM, but it's hard to find. They also make, I think, like a 110 and an 80. Any of them are fine. It doesn't matter. They come in big sheets. It's about $7 for a piece of paper, which sounds like a lot, but they're actually giant sheets. It's a little bit more than two 18 by 24 sheets each, so it comes out to about $3 per sheet, which is a lot of money still. It is the best, and if I'm gonna do like a 10-hour, 12-hour drawing on it, then it's absolutely worth it because it makes a big difference. But if you want to save money, then get the Strathmore. This is me trying to write like super clear. This is me trying to do like the architect font. I forgot what I was typing. Strathmore. I lost the architect font, I'm sorry. Strathmore, there's 500 or 400 or 300, I can't remember. I think it's 300. Either one, it's a yellow cover and it's laid, it's called charcoal. Not charcoal smooth, though. Make sure it says laid. Fuck. Laid. You'd think I have, like, dysgraphia or something. Laid finish. That's what you want specifically. 400 doesn't exist. Okay, 400 is 500 or 300. I haven't used the 500, but I felt it in my hands, and to me it felt exactly the same as the 300. And the 500 is nowhere near as good as the Arches, so it's like not much of an upgrade. But whichever one you can find. But basically, if you don't know what laid paper is it's this paper that the way that you make paper is like I've never done this. I've just watched like one video on it once, so this is a very brief summary, but basically you take a bunch of paper particles and rag and cotton, whatever it is that you want to make your paper out of, and you put them in some sort of solution, some sort of liquid solution. And then you need all of those to combine together, right? So like you could take all the pulp out and like pack it with your hands, but it wouldn't work that well. So the way that they did it back in the day is they would have a mesh square, you know, a sheet of paper size wire mesh. And the wires would run in one direction, kind of like this, right? A little bit more tight. And so you sink this down into the paper pulp, and then you pull up, and all of that paper pulp gets caught on top of it. And so it's, you know, a more mechanized process now, but laid paper has these little tiny grooves in it that go across. That's what laid paper is, and it's very, very nice for pastels and charcoal, because basically if you have smooth paper, the charcoal dust, it sits on the surface and it dusts off really easily. If you smudge it with your finger at all, it just like immediately goes and clears off the page. It doesn't sit in there. Charcoal, I would also extend this to oil paint as well, but it's not 100% necessary, but I think it's necessary. Charcoal, oil paint, pastels, a lot of things, they need a little bit of texture in the surface, so that way they can really get into the grooves and be worked into the paper, and they have a little bit more staying power. They're a lot more fun to like smudge and stump around. If you try to stump on, and I saw a couple of you guys did this, so I'll point it out to you in the crypt. If you try to stump on a smooth paper, it's just as a mess. It's not fun. You can stump on like a smooth-ish, like slightly textured, like a Strathmore 400 sketchbook page. But just don't use Vine charcoal. Just only use the Conte pencil. If you want to use Vine charcoal, you need a lot of texture. It's just too dusty. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Are charcoal pencils good for this? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about with Conte pencil. Conte pencil is technically not a charcoal pencil. Conte is this, Conte is like a blend of black chalk and charcoal and maybe some other stuff in there too. I don't know. It's a proprietary blend. And it's just a little bit darker. It just moves across the paper a little bit better than standard charcoal. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about I'll write this out too. We can just do Conte. And if you guys want all of this, Conte Pure Noir 2B. If you guys want all of this info, you can go right to this freaking place. halftonestudio.art/references, or just go to the homepage and click on references. Look right here, free complete portrait drawing guide. This has a list of all the materials in it. It doesn't have the paper in it, I don't think, because I was trying to make it simple as possible. Somebody donated. I'll respond to your question in a second. I won't forget, I promise.
Have you used ballpoint?
I might forget,
for
but
drawing?
I will try not to. But I will get to.
Of artists who stand by
you can go to this website.
Learn.
You just put in your email. It sends you a PDF. All right, and you get a guide with all the names of the materials on there, and also how it's applied to the paper. And you know how I stump and draw a portrait with it. You also, guys, we put up a bunch of drawings on here too. You might have seen this, but there's a bunch of new drawings on here that are very good, and there's close-up pictures. Ramon got access to the archives of the École, that's the French School of Fine Arts, and yeah, looking at this stuff is phenomenally helpful at improving your drawings. Before every session, I sat down and I looked at some of these pictures because they're incredibly helpful to understand. Did laid paper, was it expensive back in the day, the French training? No, it wasn't. It's only expensive now because it's not super common anymore. But back in the day, no, not at all. It was the only paper, basically. I mean, there was smooth papers back then, but laid paper was standard and it was very, very cheap. There's just not a lot of, Arches is the only one who, Arches and a few others make like a pseudo laid paper. That's kind of it. There's almost nowhere you can get like traditionally made laid paper anymore. You can get Fabriano Roma, but it's like $15 a sheet, and it's like not any better than the Arches, from my understanding. Somebody donated, Mr. Mirup, thank you for the $5. Have you ever used ballpoint for drawing? I know a lot of artists who stand by using it to learn. I think that ballpoint, No, I'm not the biggest fan of. I think learning in ink certainly can have a lot of benefits. I did the whole Peter Hahn dynamic sketching, all that stuff quite a bit when I first started, first few years of drawing. And for those who use the microns, the felt tip pens, which I think are a little bit better than ballpoint. They just kind of teach you slightly more confident, stronger line techniques and like more specific stuff. With the ballpoint you can kind of like shade like small with it and do a lot more like scratchy stuff. I think that it has potential to build bad habits, but you can learn with it whatever you want. I think that you should learn with a material that you can erase, though. It makes your life a lot better. Like, makes your life a lot easier. So I like charcoal, but ideally just you sketch with graphite. You use pen in your sketchbook. You make drawings with red chalk and with charcoal and whichever you want, and you paint with oils and watercolors and gouache. You just got to try everything. Nothing hurts. Conte plus charcoal. When I say charcoal, I'm talking about vine charcoal. When I say Conte, I'm talking about the pencil specifically. So I start the drawings out with vine charcoal. I show the approach in that guide, though. Oh, and I did forget to mention that today is the final day that my beginner's drawing course is 20% off. It's going to be, I'm not planning any other sales for a little while. So if you guys are interested learning about drawing all the 19th century methods, we go over all these material supplies and the paper and all that stuff. In here, you get 20% off of this price by entering the code up here, April 20 at checkout. That's made with me and Ramon. There's over 20 hours of content in that course, so it's really good. Check it out. I'm very proud of that course. We'll be making more. We'll do a figure drawing one soon. Very soon. Maybe not very soon. No matter which approach you choose, it just depends. Anna, I really liked yours. You said purple and green gradient map. I really liked yours. I liked the colors on that were super fun. All right. So the way that this is going to happen, I just spilled a little water myself. It's the glass jar for the bingo board. The way that this is going to happen is I'm going to basically look at stuff kind of in like chunks or segments, right? I'm not individually critiquing 75 of you. It would take me 6 hours, 7 hours, and that wasn't even a joke. And also it would just be inefficient. It would be a little bit of a waste of time, in my opinion, because most of you guys have like the same 4 or 5 issues. So I'm just going to talk about you guys in groups. I'm going to try to point out to all of you. Yeah. That's the way it's going to work. So I'll try to let you know which group you're in. These are roughly grouped within, kind of categories of the same kind of issues, right? So basically, like these top 3 are the first, basically all have like the same issues going on. So I'm going to talk about that. And then, these middle ones have like kind of some individual errors and then also some like bigger picture errors. And then there's little notes and stuff that I have as we get to the bottom. How's Drawing from Imagination going? It's going. I've been a little bit out of practice this past month, just working on videos and reels and stuff. But I've been getting back into it. I got a video coming out the end of this month. I'm going to have a sketching, Drawing from Imagination, fun, just challenge video, just having a good old time. So that's going to be coming. I got to start kind of warming up for that again this upcoming week. No point in watching then? Yeah, no point in participating in the community if I don't personally... I'm trying not to say something incredibly crass right now, guys. I'm really trying to be super safe for work. I've just been... I've been incredibly crass lately, all right? I don't know what's wrong with me. Well, I think I've just always been that way, but I just really can't hold it back. Just when people are rude, I just want to tell them a lot of things. But I'm trying to be nice, guys. I'm trying to be nice. Trying to be nice. All right, so these first few categories, guys, first 3 rows here, I just want to introduce kind of some basic figure drawing techniques and ways that we can kind of approach these problems. Because there's basically a lot of the same things happening. Well, actually, it's really mostly the first 2 rows, but it kind of still applies like the next 2 rows too, just to a slightly lesser degree. But I think pretty much everything on these first few rows just has like some big drawing approach stuff that I want to go over, that will, just like little tips and ideas, things that we can think about while starting out our drawing that are going to just drastically improve what we do by, a really big margin. And it's really not that much extra work. So I'm going to grab the first one here. How can I make realistic art that sells? Just work on the first part first. That's, hard enough on its own, so make sure you give it enough time. I think if you want to make art that sells, don't rob yourself of the experience of being a student, because you will eventually learn that being a student is the best time. And you can really sell your education by trying to rush to making money as soon as possible. I see it all the time. And we all have to do, there's economic pressures on all of us. We all have to do it to some extent, I'm gonna... What is this song? We're going to the Oblivion music, so I can lock the frick in. All right, so this one looks like you're doing kind of like what's the guy's name? The force drawing guy, Michael Matisse or something. It looks like you're kind of got a lot of like influence by like the force drawing stuff, when I first started drawing, I did this too. I would be like, oh, I really love gesture, I really love motion and figures, and so I'd like kind of start out my drawings by like doing like so much of this, even Glenn Villepeu does this to like some extent, and trying to like build up energy and be charismatic and fast. But I think that a lot of that is fine, but the way that you go about it, I think that like doing like this like a million times and like trying to build up energy in lines, well, first off, you can do whatever you want, as long as it helps you achieve the goals. I think for some stuff like animation, that this type of drawing helps, but for doing some sort of like figure study where we're trying to, the goal of a figure study normally to refine our ability to draw accurately, to see proportions, to see light and shadow, to understand anatomy. These are kind of like the most important bits of figure drawing. And I think that it's just not an effective strategy for building up almost any of those attributes. And I mean, you can go back and like, maybe even some of them are Instagram. I have drawings where like, they look like this, like I'm like really, but you can capture all of that beauty and rhythm and motion and elegance without kind of being so on the nose about the motion. It doesn't have to be so over the top exaggerated. And that's actually my favorite part about drawing, these French drawings, is that they do capture a lot of that, incredible movement and elegance in some pretty boring poses. And that makes it even all the more impressive. You can really see in one like this, it's a giant photo. That's the type of high resolution that we provide on halftonestudio.art. You can really see like how these rhythms, they build out into each other, they flow down. We have these kind of crisscrossing rhythms that loop through the body like this. But there's still like a really incredible amount of proportion and elegance in this drawing it's difficult to come by. It's incredibly subtle. Some guy just said Jake, period. So some strategies that we can improve kind of our accuracy and our likeness is, and people are gonna hate me for this, but pretty much we can solve, if you are within this group, you can solve most of your problems, and there's varying degrees to which people are in this group, but you can solve a lot of your beginner problems, guys, just by counting heads. And people always like lament and they kick and stomp and I hate counting heads. Counting heads is so stupid. You just want everyone to look the same. You're so, whatever. Every time I mention counting heads, it takes 5-10 minutes. It's a little bit confusing the first couple times you do it, but it's very easy. If you're going to spend an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 10 hours, 20 hours, however long on a drawing, put in your due diligence and just, spend 10, 20 minutes really kind of locking stuff in, setting yourself up for a good drawing. I tried that. I don't think I did it right though. Yeah, so let's go over the procedure, right? So you're going to look at your reference, and whether that's a live model in front of you or a photo reference, and you can hold out your pencil and thumb. Proko has a good video on comparative measurement, by the way, where he shows some good visuals of how to use your pencil and thumb. It's too difficult to do it on a live stream, so you can look up Proko, types of measuring, and he shows you how to count heads too, and how to hold your pencil out in front of you with your thumb. I think that's a good video. But essentially, we're gonna hold out our pencil and thumb, and we're gonna mark one head height. And this is a totally arbitrary unit, guys. You can mark a head to nipple height and see how many head to nipples this guy is. It's just that head heights are reasonably uniform across people. Even if you have somebody who is somebody who's very, very short, somebody who's 4 foot tall or something, their heads aren't that much smaller. Oftentimes they're pretty similar to a totally normal height, the size of someone who's a totally normal head size, because we have a brain and we have a whole bunch of stuff. Just the variance of head size is not that big across people. The variance of arm length is huge. The variance of leg length is massive. The variance of rib cage width to height and depth, how boxy a rib cage is versus how egg-like it is, that changes a ton between person and person. That's super unique. But the head height, there's variance, of course, but it's a much smaller scale than anything else. I think because our brain's probably in there. Fuzzy, thanks for the $5. This is more donations that I've gotten in a long time in a live stream. Can you give advice on how to draw the values and render? I can sketch so good, but it comes to rendering, it looks flat and bad. Yeah, we're gonna get to that stuff down here, especially once we hit this row. So I'll absolutely get to that. But it's important to note, a lot of people think that they have issues with the rendering and stuff, but it's issues that happen at this stage. And if you can get stronger at your understanding of form, which has to coincide with rendering, and you don't learn it all and then just move on, you have to keep returning back to it. But as your understanding of form and of three-dimensionality of things improves, then you get better at rendering very naturally. Hey Jake, when did you start drawing? And if you were as good as an old master overnight, what would you... Oh, those are two separate questions. I thought you were asking me if I was instantly good at drawing, because I was absolutely not. I've been drawing for about 7 years now, I think. All right, I want to stay focused on getting these head heights in. So what we can do is we can hold out our thumb and pencil, and we can count how many heads tall this guy is. It's 1, 2, 3, and I always double check this, by the way. 3, 4, 5. He's about 6 heads tall, right? And I would always double check, triple check that. It just takes a few more seconds, and if you're gonna spend time on a drawing, you should set up properly. So it's about 6 heads tall. Maybe, I think I remember on mine, maybe I made it slightly taller. I can't remember. That's a little bit short for a person. Generally, people are about 7.5 heads tall, but this guy's kind of hunched over and he's kind of crouching down a little bit, and so that compresses the height, right? So that means that the head is proportionally longer. If we were to look at this person's, go brighter red. Sorry to anyone who's red colorblind. Oh, why I started drawing. I think I just wanted any sort of purpose in life. It's want to do something in my life that I was passionate about, because I'm only good at doing things that I'm passionate about. So we have 1 head height, 2 head height, and you can just mark these out with charcoal. You're gonna get it wrong, but the nice thing about charcoal is that it erases. Did I just compress that a little bit? Yeah, I did. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6. So it looks like we're maybe a little bit stretched out here. I think this foot should probably end a little bit past the 6, if I remember correctly. Right? Because I think he's just over 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it really feels like we're kind of getting stretched out here. So that's something that we can start out our drawing. This is our sheet of paper that we're drawing on. We want to mark where the top of our drawing goes, where the bottom of our drawing we want to end up. We're going to drop, vertical line just very faintly, and we count out those 6 head heights, right? 1, 2, and you should double check these. 3, 4. I'm just going to do it by eye. 6, and a little bit more than 6. You should double check them. I would double check them too. What was your main class in WoW? When I was in like 5th grade, it was a hunter. It was a Beastmaster hunter. I wasn't any good though. I never even got max level, I don't think. I just bullshitted around all the time. And I've never been able to decide on a class. I'm really bad at like picking one class and sticking to it. I always wanted to try all the other ones, so I like half leveled up a ton of characters. This was back in Burning Crusade days when I was in like 5th grade. Or maybe it was like early Wrath. All right. And then we can kind of lay things in somewhat gesturally, right? We know our head is going to fit here. It has kind of a tilt to it like this, right? We know that sweep of the shoulders is cutting about halfway through the head. So we can lay this in kind of like this, right? We can pull these lines out. I'm going to try to overlay you a little bit on here. I'm looking too at the angles that connect things, right? So the side of his hair like this kind of sweeps down, and look, it kind of ends up at his foot too. So this is where the head is. The hair is going to come out probably about here, and then we're going to have this big sweeping angle that's going to come down like this. And that's a really nice way that we can have some sort of efficiency, right? Finding ways that these connect together, finding kind of those big overall proportions. I know that a little bit below this 3rd head height is the bottom of the crotch. So you had your head heights pretty, decently correct vertically, but like I think things just got like a little bit exaggerated. And I know the hand ends kind of at about that level too. So the hand's going to be right around here. That arm's kind of coming out like this. We have the pit of the neck right in here. I'll talk more about landmarks and anatomy and building out this type of stuff as we get further in. We want to just kind of get it a basic general envelope. We kind of have this side squashing in like this, and then it collides with the midsection like this. And a lot of the way that we can really make sure that we're getting stuff like the feet in the right spot is by thinking about something called our plumb lines, right? So when I'm looking where to put the feet, how do we not make them so exaggerated and kind of stylized like this? How do we make them feel like the character has weight under it, like the character is actually moving? That's where we want to look at like our center of gravity or our plumb line. A plumb line is just a weight on a string, and you can make a plumb line with anything. Take any piece of string and attach it to any weight. Doesn't need to be heavy at all. You can buy a plumb bob if you want, which is like the official way that these are done. But you hold it up and it always points down, right? And so if you find the pit of the neck and we look at a straight line down from here, Well, it looks like the heel is going to be right at about the side of the head here, a little bit to the right of the pit of the neck. So side of the head here, a little bit to the right of the pit of the neck. I look at where a straight line down is on my page. Now I know my foot, my heel, is going to be on this line. Right? So that's where the foot's going to be. And now I also know where it starts, right? I could look at a plumb line from the pit of my crotch, and it looks like it goes a little bit outside the shoulder. So a little bit outside the shoulder to the pit of the crotch. That looks good, right? So that's where the pit of the crotch is. And I know about where the inside of that heel is going to be. So now I know how to take this down and connect this inwards, right? So this is how we get accuracy. And you can keep it loose, keep it gestural if you want. Just try to think about like, hey, where am I starting and where am I stopping? I think that's really important. Check where you start and you stop, and then try to pull a nice line in between them. It look kind of just like the negative space in here. And that's how we kind of maintain our ability to have these proportions and just not let things get so out of whack. Things get so out of control. And it takes a little bit of time, especially if you're working 18 by 24, to put a figure on the page, centered, taking up the whole page, and count out the head heights and get the head heights accurate. You're not going to do that on your first try. You're going to do that a few times, and it is going to absolutely suck your first couple times. It's really hard. I hadn't done a charcoal figure in again, probably about 4 or 5 months. And I've learned a lot about figure drawing. I've gotten a lot better at art just in general and just a way of thinking about this stuff. And so I came back and I was like, well, I know I'm going to do really well with this one. And it's going to be easy. It's going to be cakewalk. I kind of figured out how to draw. And then I sat down in my first session. I was like, shit, this is way harder than I remember. And it is always like that. It is always very, very, very hard to start out your drawings. And it always feels like a mess. Even for someone like me and certainly for people who are better than me. So if it's your first time counting head heights, please don't be like all the other internet chuds and go, oh, counting head heights sucks. I tried it once and it was way too hard. It's like, yeah, drawing sucks. I tried it once and it was way too hard. And that's pretty much the same for all of you, right? Like, where is the position of our heel? This needs to be moved forward a little bit, right? Where is our halfway point of the figure? It feels like our legs are too short here. If we count our head heights, I think our head would wind up being a little bit too small. And what are those kind of big rhythms, the big shapes of there? So again, here, it looks like the feet are in roughly the right position, but I think the torso is probably much too long, right? It was like 3 torsos down, or 3 heads down to the crotch. It's like 1, 3. I think that crotch comes down a little bit lower like this, and then you're probably missing like a whole head height in the legs in here. Or likewise, if you shrunk this a little bit, then you would shrunk the top half, then you would fit on the page. Likewise here, right? This one looks like we got the feet about in the right position, but just much too stretched out too long. I think we have like a whole extra head in there. Same here. 2, 3. Maybe bring this in a little bit more. And we'll talk about some form stuff, some anatomy stuff, but pretty much all you need to do is get this and get as accurately as possible. It might take you a half hour, it might take you 40 minutes. But keep it as simple as possible too, because simplicity means that you have less brain power occupied on, keeping track of a million different things. So simplicity means you have more brain power to focus on the things that matter most, and that allows you to become more accurate. It takes a little bit of confidence, takes a lot of experience, But like, there's some nice hatching, some nice form stuff going on here, and it's in pen. But it's a shame that I think that you know, the head is just far too small, and also like, there's a nice quote. I think it's from Bonnat, Léon Bonnat, French painter, late 19th century. I think it's from him, but it says, "When you're drawing the feet, look at the head." Generally, you know, that's just an expression for everything, right? When you're drawing anything, you should be comparing it to every other part, or else things get out of whack. It's something we have to like constantly do, is just try to compare everything to everything else. But here, when we're drawing the feet, you know, our foot here is like bigger than the guy's head for the most part. And so like, these are little things that you're gonna have to do, you know, a pencil sketch, which is very common, by the way, very common pencil sketch before an ink sketch, allows you to get a lot more accuracy. The form stuff looks nice in this one. There's a whole bunch of different skill levels in here, but almost all of it, you could go down to like here probably. Almost all of it is just issues with kind of those big proportions, right? I will draw over one of the other photos to illustrate the same things. Yeah, you can't good enough yourself at this stage. Sketch. I was impatient with the sketch and good enough, then later on realized how off I was and kept dragging mistakes. Yeah, this is the most important stage. Now, I don't want to say, it's tough because I don't want to say there's no good enough for this stage, there's no I'll fix it later. In general, there's not, but also it's just like, especially if you're like, don't have years of serious drawing experience doing this stuff, like, you're not going to get it perfect, and people get so anxious and they get so stiff and they like work it and they just kill their drawing early on because they're just so anxious about making it perfect in this stage because they don't want to accept good enough. So there's always some level of nuance to this, and there's always some level of inaccuracy you're going to have to accept, but trying to shoot from the most simplicity possible, you know, using plumb lines all the time. Hey, where is this thumb, right? Let me get to a higher layer. Can we get much higher? Where's this thumb? Oh, it's a little bit outside the knee. It's a little bit further outside of here. Oh, you know, what's the angle that this leg goes in? Well, let me look. What's straight up and down from here? Let me hold out my pencil in front of me, straight up and down, or use a plumb line. Oh, okay. It's kind of coming in like this here and then this here. All right, so now I know here, this probably got to come in a little bit more on mine, right? And then much deeper in here. Right. And what I saw there too, by the way, guys, I just did something kind of without thinking about it, but I'll explain it, is when I brought this in to correct the angle here, now all of a sudden this leg is really small. You know, this is way too small of a space for this. So it's like, okay, how else could I make it so that I could have the leg moving at this angle? Because if I have it moving at this angle and I move it in like this, then it becomes too small. Well, what I could do is I could bring the hip out a little bit further and then pull it out. And now all of a sudden, that's right. Right, so there's always a few ways to solve the problem. And a lot of times, you're gonna get caught up on stuff, and you're gonna like keep fixing a problem, and you don't realize that every time you do it, you're fixing it in like a weird way, and you're making all of your limbs super skinny. You know, this happens all the time. And then you're like, oh shit, I have to like kind of rescale the whole figure, you know, oh, where my head height's now, you know, when everything gets skinny, if everything were to get skinny all of a sudden, now it feels like the character's way too tall. But actually, if something feels too tall, it could be too tall, and we could reduce the head heights. Or it could just be too thin, right? Because everything is relative. So you have to, again, you keep your eye on like the big shapes, the big rhythms that connect things, and how we solve these problems, right? And it's likewise with all of these, right? These legs, just at a glance, we can tell that the upper body is far too long for the size of these legs. And to varying degrees, you know, like some of these are a lot closer than others. But those are strategies that we need to employ every time. What's your take on apps that can help you with plumb line and angles and all? I don't suggest using that. I'm not a big fan of any of that. I think it could kind of get into an area where it's like a little bit too close to like tracing. Because at the end of the day, like those are little tools that you kind of just quickly reference. You know, all I do to reference a plumb line is I have a paintbrush in my hand or a paper stump, something like this, and I just hold it up straight, you know? And it's not a perfect plumb line because gravity's not pulling it down exactly, but I can estimate what's straight in front of me, and it's like good enough. And that's what I do for plumb line. But I do own a physical plumb line, and it is very useful to draw, and everyone in the French Academy used them all the time. You know, all the teachers used them and recommended them. I don't like, you know, at the end of the day, there's a lot more to drawing than just getting a bunch of angles right. And I think that if you're using apps, you're like super hyper fixating on stuff. You're working too slowly, you're very anxious and scared about making mistakes. What can happen is you start to merge the ideas that angles and plumb lines and measurement is important with drawing with the idea that that is drawing itself, you know? Those two things become it. But there's a lot more to drawing than just that. Like, you know, there's form and movement and rhythm. There's anatomy. You know these ideas of construction and structure and how things fit and wedge together. You know, the philosophy that I try to do, you know, to exemplify here is that you shouldn't try to be, you know, a super hardcore master at any of them. You just try to use all of the tools effectively as possible, basically. In the smallest amounts, right? You know, jack of all trades, master of none. Just use whatever tool you need at the moment, but I wouldn't over rely on any of them. Useful to rotate the reference and drawing from time to time to get rid of how it should be. Yeah, you mean like flipping and mirroring the canvas? The question was, do you think I should rotate the drawing and the reference? I don't do it with the reference too often, but it's actually possible and traditional, and then there's a lot of people in like the Russian teacher that I had for a little while. All the Russian students had little mirrors that they had in their pocket, like pocket mirrors, makeup mirrors, and they would just go like this and look over their shoulder into the mirror, and they'd see their drawing in the reflection. And actually, if your phone screen doesn't have too many fingerprints on it, you know, you can use the black of your phone screen and actually get a really good mirror. So you can see that. And that's the same thing as inverting your drawing digitally. Let's see. Let me grab one of these to do. This is a good one. Cool. So the process, again, just to reiterate. You know, this is our piece of sketchbook paper. Where do we want our drawing to be? Our most important thing is how we compose it on the page. We want to get used to the idea of composing things to making pictures. Right, so where's the top, where's the bottom? That's where we want it to be. You did a good job of centering and using up most of the page on this. I think that's really good, actually. And the drawing's pretty controlled, too. But what we want to do, you know, next, if we're going to spend a little bit of time on the drawing, I highly recommend you just drop in a vertical line. You don't got to use a ruler or anything. Count out how many head heights tall this guy is, right? I don't know how many head heights this is. Let me do it real quick. 1, 3, 4. I think he's a little over 6. Let me try again. 2, 3, 4. Yeah, like 6.5. Okay. So like 6.5, right? So we'll say this is where top of our head is. This is where like our jaw is. 1. I would measure this out more precisely. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think we can have a little bit more room. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and a half. I'm gonna cheat a little bit here just for the sake of time. I would not recommend that. All right, 6.5. I think I was basically right the first time. Right, so we know that that head now has to fit in this area, right? And I try to, estimate where like the actual skull ends. So I give a little bit of space extra for putting the hair on top. Submissions, no more submissions. We already got 75. All right, there's the shape of the head, or the head and the hair. It's kind of like a tilt to the head like this too. I might put that in. Okay, here's the slant to the shoulders. That first head height kind of came down just above where the rib cage ended. I normally try to find the center line down the body so we get this kind of nice curve. I could check a plumb line from the pit of the crotch. The pit of the crotch and the center line are actually pretty close to each other. Or the pit of the neck, pretty close to each other. Right, here's where that peanuts is. Maybe a little bit lower. And trying to make things as simple as humanly possible, we just group, right? Like, can we just throw this all into like a big sack of flour or whatever? Try to keep those big rhythms. And again, where am I starting and where am I stopping? Where am I starting? Like, look at this nice rhythm that flows through the figure, right? Like, this is the type of stuff that you want to just sit and look at the figure and try to appreciate and find first. So we get this nice flow that, like, comes down through the head, through the pit of the crotch, right? Through the pit of the neck, through the pit of the crotch, through the center line of the chest and the belly button. And then, look, it comes out and flows down the figure. And where is this going to be? We can use a plumb line about the edge of his shoulder, edge of his hair, right? So right about here. Look at that plumb line on ours. That's where that rear foot is going to be. So there's our main motion, our main driver. We draw the body first before drawing the arm. Yeah, I think it's nice to have like a trunk of the tree and then to attach the limbs, right? I like to try to ground the figure to its feet in the right spot as early as possible. I don't think it doesn't matter that much to have your reference be as big as possible. Even in real life, if you're drawing in like a school with like a lot of people around a model, the reference or the model really sometimes isn't even that big. You might be sitting 10 feet back. In the French academies, they had 70 students around a model. Like some of these guys were like 3 rows of students back, so I don't think the size of the model is that big of a deal. And like a lot of times I've kind of been, I actually appreciated this reference. I thought some people were going to give me some shit for it, but it didn't end up happening, which was nice. I was kind of excited that this reference was not super high resolution. To me, that was interesting. Normally, I try to find super nice, higher resolution photos for you guys, but actually, I think you really don't get to like zoom in and see the toenails in real life very frequently. And you do have to like rely on your knowledge a little bit. Might be like a little short here. right. That's what we're looking for, guys. That's what's important when starting out a figure. And also, you know, take a look at the width. Generally, I've showed kind of how to construct the head before. But the, you know, you guys have seen the Loomis method or whatever before, where you kind of take a sphere and you cut it off. The head is just a sphere with like this jaw section attached to it, right? It's like a welding mask. Poifo in the chat, patiently waiting 4 hours for me to get to her drawing, just to say that it's good. That's our resident welder. Right, it's like a sphere, and then we put like kind of a mask on the front. That's what the head is. This sphere in here, it's actually more like an egg form. It's slightly longer than it is wider. I'm on the background layer, aren't I? This sphere is called the cranium, right? That's just like the big cranium mass of the head. And in some measurement systems, some proportion systems, are used. The distance from the pit of the neck to the edge of the collarbone here, it's about a cranium. You know, it's about the size of that head. You know, so you get like one width of the head, or like sometimes 1.5 on someone who's like really muscular, to this edge of the body. I'll get a little bit more into like kind of standard proportions and stuff in a little bit. But in your case here, and there's just kind of a level of just needing to like back up and double check things at some point. You know, like it's totally fine to like start out your drawing, to kind of hit this point, you know, take a break, go get some water, some coffee, whatever, come back to it in 10 minutes, and then sit back and like look at your reference, look at your drawing and think like, okay, what's different? You know, obviously on ours, we're feeling a little bit thick here. And so, you know, what is being a little thick? The head size is small too, which is why I went on the whole thing about measuring heads. But what is being thick? Well, being thick could just mean that we just need to make him taller, right? We just need to increase, you know, give him some more height, and it will balance out his body. Or we could just make him thinner, right? We could just put him on a diet. Right, so it'd probably just be bringing this in a little bit. I think this shoulder comes out to here, and we have like this much negative space. But in actuality, this shoulder starts curving down basically at the side of the hair here. Right, so if we brought in the body like this, all of a sudden, you would become proportional. But I think your head size is a little small, and if you made him this skinny, the head size would look even smaller, which is maybe what happens, and you know how you accidentally compensate by making it thicker. Because you know there's many ways to solve a problem. So that is the first category of people, guys. Pretty much, oops. Boom, gone. Pretty much all of you could drastically improve things by using more plumb lines, finding the center of balance, comparing the size of things to heads and stuff like that. You know, like when I say that, like just very roughly looking at the reference. This, and you can use your thumb and pencil to do this, like this is like a little bit smaller than the head, about 2/3 the size of a head, right? So when we come here and like, this is the size of our foot, well, I think the way that I drew it the first time was bigger. It's smaller, it's smaller. If you look at the size of the foot here and you're not paying attention to like kind of the size of the torso and the head, I think the head is small here too. It's just the torso is like bigger. And so the head needs to be a little bit bigger, and then the foot needs to get a little bit bigger with it. So these two are actually probably proportional to each other, but just it's not proportional to the rest of the body. You know, and then also just trying to, don't worry too much about like all the little bumps and curves and stuff early on. Where does my foot start? Where does it land? And how can I just pull some nice smooth lines that indicate the rhythms to these parts? And we can start to layer in that anatomy later on. And I'm going to talk about some form stuff next. And you can always look too, like, hey, what is the thickness of this leg and how does it compare to like the size of the cranium on the model? For me, these are feeling a little bit skinny, they're feeling a little bit short. You know, I think if I just like went here and I just did something like this, your drawing will be like much, much more accurate. Vic, how do you remember the muscles and origin points? It takes time. It's probably not as important as you think. It's very hard to say that, to give you a definitive answer on that, because a lot of people are just failing at this stage. And you don't really need to know that many muscles, or almost any, in origins. I learned a lot from Ramon's anatomy classes. They're on his website, RamonHurtado.com. I don't make it no commission for saying that. Those are just the best anatomy classes. But I own a lot of anatomy books too. I don't think that they're that it's that important. It's important, but it's not important. Just for most people, it's not important. The French Academy archives are online. And they changed their URL. They reworked their website. Here it is. You can look at all the French Academy figure drawings right here, if you want. But they're not high resolution. They're very low resolution. They all look like they're magic. I think the Morpho anatomy books are good for starters. I like this is an anime anatomy book, but I like it. I like the Taco 1704 anatomy. As far as like technical anatomy, you can pick any one of many. The only one I'm not a big fan of is Michael Hampton, but I don't even think that Michael Hampton's bad. I'm just not the biggest fan of the way that he approaches some stuff. Cool. All of that applies for all of you. And it applies for pretty much most people here. It applies for you too. But the proportions get a little bit... Are you in 2 spots? This guy made it in twice somehow. Guys, if you submit 2 drawings, please, like if you update your drawing, please delete the first one. Because I end up just going down the list and I add or see the same person like 3 times sometimes. Don't they shut down the website for summer? No. Why would they shut down a website for summer? Those pictures, the pictures on the French Academy website look like they look like magic because they're super low res. You have to go to the École in person in order to see them. I've just never read Duval, Jacob. I've never read the Duval anatomy book. I think Richer has a lot of really nice anatomy drawings. I also haven't really gone through Richer either. There's like a billion different... It doesn't really matter what you choose for anatomy at all. I think a lot of like faster quick sketching is good with some longer stuff. Okay. 1010's books. Are those Chinese ones? I think there's a lot of really good Chinese books too. For like game, I think like a lot of like the game art anatomy stuff is really good and simplified in a nice way. Anatomy can be as much or as little as you want. It doesn't have too much impact. You can pretty much not know it at all and get away with like really, really, really good drawings. All right. So with like the next, almost all of these, we can talk about some form, some construction, some anatomy stuff. I think that there is kind of a essence of character that I do want to talk about too. But I guess I'll wait until I find a good one. I haven't talked about this drawing yet, so I think this one will be a good one to start on. Okay. So here, you know, putting them side by side too, I think it's just nice to like kind of ask people, and don't say it in the chat. Think about it in your head. What you see that is wrong, you know, what we can improve with this one. There is some head height stuff. The head height stuff applies to almost all of you. At least like 50% of you, right? It's like super, super important. But there is also some like characteristic ideas too that I want to get across. So this head just needs to be a little bit bigger. That's probably right. All these drawings at the Cole are award-winning. Yeah, it's only they only kept them if they're award-winning, so they're only on the website if they're award-winning. Yep. Now, what I mean by like character is like, what is the if you were a character artist and you were gonna draw some or caricature artist, you were gonna draw somebody's face, like what kind of essential elements would you think about? What sort of like big shapes do they have? What sort of shape language do they have? How could we think about that in a way of like forms too, like three-dimensional? You know, when I'm talking about shapes, I might be talking about something as like oval or square. When I'm talking about forms, I might be talking about something as like egg-like or, you know, very boxy. That's the difference between shape and form. So when I look at this guy's head, you know, I see this like very, very cylindrical form, right? We get like this one eyebrow raised, but everything has this nice feeling of wrapping, and we're also looking upwards at him too.
Love the videos.
Right?
Red heart emoji.
We're looking upwards at him and we see the underside of his chin. So these are all important ideas to consider, especially seeing the underside of the chin here, because that lets us know that we're seeing the bottom side of something, which means that we're looking upwards on it. And we've lost a lot of that shape language in yours. Even though you have a lot of the information, a lot of the angles might be like technically correct. You know, like does the neck bump out a little bit here and then jet back in? Yes, but is that really like a defining characteristic of his face? Not really. It's kind of just how the muscle works. And I think here, like, a lot of this stuff is correct. It's there, but it's not like serving the greater purpose. Thank you for the $5, whatever 8902. I'm getting hella donations this stream, man. I've never gotten more than like 2 donations in a stream, and we're on 3. Appreciate it, guys. A lot of people watch the new video and they're coming in who haven't seen the channel in a while. But I'm always here. Every 2 weeks, guys, we do this stream, just about. This one's been 3 weeks, but that's just that's kind of how it goes. So what I want to see in this head here is I want to see kind of building out from what is the simplest, strongest way that we can convey this head, right? And that really is this nice cylindrical feeling, making sure that we have room for this darker underside, right? This kind of like chin strap area. Kind of comes down in this very triangular point. The light sources on this figure are quite peculiar, yeah. It looks like there's one coming straight down and then one coming this way. Yeah, that's what it is. I think there's one coming straight down, one coming this way. But I don't know why this is lighted too. Or maybe the light's coming down like this. And so we're hitting kind of the right facing planes and upwards facing planes of things. And then we're also getting a front facing light, which is casting shadows backwards. Right, so we have this kind of big cylindrical reed of the head. And this is all I want at first. I don't care about nothing else. And then like this hair kind of comes off in like these perimeter wedge shapes. And yeah, those curls come off, but they're just not a big deal for us to care about right now. And I could literally do this, I think. Move that nose up a little bit. And I think I could literally do this and have more likeness, you know, than the start. Because we're just putting in kind of those essential plane changes, those essential shifts, and we're kind of trying to keep that big shape language together, right? Instead of trying to chase down all the details. And what makes you stronger and better at this type of stuff is, you know, understanding the planes of the face. You know, you could draw planar heads, or you could do cast studies or whatever, right? You know, we have these kind of more highlighted tones, highlighted planes on top of our cheekbones here. Probably get a little bit on top of our nose, right? A little bits on top of here. And all this will kind of go into building that overall idea. But don't get too caught up on the details of this stuff until you sink in, you know, the most important details. Another shape language thing that I'm seeing here is we have, well, we could check like the plumb line of where's the back of this leg here. If we go straight up, it's going to hit like the side of his head. Here, we're way past that, right? And it just feels in general like we have this big mass here, and we might be kind of copying what we see here, but we're not like understanding it, right? So where's this kind of transition point of the body? It's on the side of the head too. So that's probably in the right spot. Let's bring this in just a whole bunch more. And by shoring up and skinning up that leg a little bit, we get like a much stronger shape language, right? And let's have us, you know, allow us to have some light down here too, just so that we can see what we're doing. I would also recommend when doing studies, if you see black, just put black down. Don't be scared. Don't have to like, you know, make yourself, oh, I'm only going to do 20% gray and then I'll like slowly add on, you know, the lights. Just try to shoot for the values that you see, you know? So I want to kind of push the relationships of this much more and much more casually too, just early on. And we can kind of build in all those changes and stuff as time goes on. You know, but I think we get a stronger read from this, for the most part, than this, right? And a slightly better base to work off of. Also, too, another kind of characteristic thing is this feels like this, we have this like really strong like rhythm like this too. You know, that's something we want to keep in mind and think about. But also what jets off this way is this moves down and outwards at an angle like this, right? So I want to bring in this a little bit, but then also push out the arm a little bit more to make it feel like it's pulling outwards. Expelducks, jeez, what the hell, guys, for the $5? People are going crazy today. You made it back into my algorithm. Yeah, the perspective video was interesting for me because perspective skills are okay, but I suck at everything else. It's interesting, you know, the videos have, a lot of other videos have like picked up a little bit of motion just from the color video because that's the way the algorithm works. You know, you make a few videos and like, you know, the broader audience just, they never see it if it doesn't like do well enough. But then the color video, I think, kind of brought everything back out into the focus. So now people are coming back. It's cool that you like the perspective video. It's, you know, I made a whole lot of interesting videos and I got some more interesting ones going. I like trying new things. And for me, that's the whole point of art. Try new stuff. And reading history only confirms that. Cool. Just some big shape language, some big shape and character ideas. And that goes for a lot of you guys. In here. Let's talk about form. Let's talk a little bit about form. You gotta measure head heights. I saw you whining in chat about not getting crit. So there's your crit. Let's talk about form. This one's probably a little bit better to do form stuff on. Guys, there's 3 major masses of the body. There's the head. Okay? There's the rib cage. And there's the pelvis. Put that a little bit closer. Those are the 3 major masses of the body. They can twist and turn quite a bit. You know, the neck can turn quite a bit independent of the rib cage. The rib cage can turn independent of the neck, not quite as much. And the hips have quite a bit of mobility too in different ways. Our spine obviously is the column that connects them. One thing about the rib cage is that it is an egg-like form, but it tilts forward. It tilts forward. You know, if we put a little pin in it like this, that axis of the rib cage here is like this, right? And the hips are a bit more boxy. And they have these 2 points called the ASIS points. ASIS stands for anterior superior iliac spine. But it's just like, the hips are kind of like this bowl, basically. Ramon calls these the Mickey Mouse ears. They have these 2 spines, right? These 2 wings, or Mickey Mouse ears, that come up around into the front. And where they connect to the front is where a whole bunch of muscles slot into and then also come out of. And where you have muscles that tuck in and come out, that's where you get normally a bony landmark. And you can see these oblique muscles coming in like this, and then coming out like that. Right? And so that kind of shows the front of the hips. Right? It gives us like this box-like structure. Slightly more tapered on the bottom. The ribcage also, I'm kind of going back and forth between these. The ribcage also has an opening, right? We have this opening on our ribs, like this. And it's hollow on the inside. The ribs come back a little bit further down in the back. And we also have a necktie too. We have a tie. Boom, just like this. We wear our fancy tie, connects to the pit of our neck up here. And it comes down and ends in a point. That's our sternum, our breastbone. Someone speaking Zhongwen in chat. Dajahao. This is the sternum. And in classical poses, ones like Hercules or any sort of Greek classical poses, I'm using a drawing tablet right now. It's just not a displayed one. I don't like the displayed ones quite as much, or they just hurt my neck. They're not as comfortable. All right, we have our ribcage like this guy, and then we have that big opening here. And what's considered like classical beauty or strength, you know, very Herculean, is having like a big rounded arch. Women tend to have an arch that curves inwards like this a little bit more. Highly variable between people. You know, not entirely a gendered thing, but there's obviously averages between sexes. But genuinely what's considered like super strong, masculine, Herculean is like this big rounded open arch, which is obviously what this this bodybuilder in this photo is going for here. So we have kind of this cylindrical egg head that I showed, and it's important that we see the underplane of that because it shows us that we're looking upwards at a cylinder like this. We're seeing the underplane of it. That shows us that our camera's down low looking upwards. And then we connect. The center line is magic, guys. The center line is the most important thing for drawing pretty much anything, but especially the human figure, right? We always want to be looking for the center line. So tie that balloon, the balloon of the head, we need to tie a string to it and pull it to the pit of the neck. Dick, I'll give you a super chat if you pretend like Hebo was late to submit and you remove his submission. Yeah, no problem. Great. Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Jake Don't Draw Super Show live stream experience. So we need to tie our balloon to the pit of our neck. The pit of our neck, very important area, this little like kind of U-shaped, is where our neck muscles insert into as well. It is locogenuinely a face. It is a locogenuinely Kirk face, to be honest. And Hevo's welcome to super chat and get his his drawing back into the pool. All right, so we come out over the top of this egg like this. We hit the opening right in here. Right, this is where our rib cage is, and then we're dropping straight off on a cliff. Right, we're coming out, and then we're coming down, and we're pulling towards the pit of our crotch. And we can always check too. It's always good to check the plumb line between the pit of the neck and the pit of the crotch, because even though there can be a lot of curving, they tend to be pretty in line with each other. Actually, it kind of always comes back. Thanks for the 20 secs. Chat, how much is 20 secs? Can't even get 1 sec for 20 USD around here, if you know what I'm saying. All right. That's why they come to the Jake Don't Draw live stream Super Show experience. $2.1. Hey, that's good. That survives the cutoff. It's almost enough for one McChicken. All right, those ACES points, connectors of our hip, right, forms that kind of that front boxy part, and our obliques or our abs in the middle. You can kind of think of them as like flowing off of the nipples too. They form that midsection, right? And the obliques come around from the sides and they plug into here. There's that box of the hips. I could get a Costco hot dog with that actually. That's pretty good. And, you know, we're probably a little bit short on the legs here, just from what I can see. We also check the plumb line of this, check the plumb line of this. It's not too bad. I think it probably comes back a little bit more. And I like to think, you know, the whole body is kind of always crisscrossing over itself. You know, the body is like, and Ramon, you know, everyone kind of encounters this once you get deep into anatomy enough. Like, the body is really incredible. Like, it has this kind of just spectacular crisscrossing motion. Ramon calls this the meat braid, which is funny and interesting. But, you know, if we have like our rib cage like this, we have like our chest muscles that kind of stretch across. And if we were to like raise one arm up, we get our trap muscles, our deltoid muscles plug in here. These would come up and they connect to our chest muscles. What's up with all the, what is the Chinese, I think it's an emote. Is it even Chinese? What's the little emote text with an A? I can't see it. These chest muscles, they come up, they connect to where the deltoid comes around from our back. That's our shoulder cap, right? We have our lat muscles that come up from behind us, our back too, and they plug in up here. Our bicep muscles come out like this, right? Our tricep muscles come out too, behind. Biceps come out like this. Triceps come out behind. And you get this like everywhere you look on the body. You just get this like wonderful like rhythmic braiding of things that just pull and come into each other. And I see that too, you know, if we pull our leg, which is going to originate off of that ACES point of the hip, I'm like pulling that rhythm down like this to the heel. Is there a muscle that runs like this? No, of course not, right? There's not a muscle that's going to run from the front to the back. It's just not really how things work. But like this is kind of the essence of the muscle, right? We have like all these muscles that run down in this direction and in this direction, and then we have all these muscles that come out like this, and they run down and around like this, and we have muscles that come down and flow down to the heel. So I'm kind of just looking for ways that I can kind of rhythmically tie these together. Of course, I'm saying, hey, where is this heel before I do anything? Where is the heel going to end, and how many head heights down is it, so I know where I'm starting and where I'm ending. And then I'm also like, look how straight the back of the leg is too when we see that. And you did a good job of that here. You're not like super far off. I'm just really using you to kind of describe some basic construction ideas. This used to be a chat dominated by the Finns, but now there's a lot of Swedes lurking. I liked it. I know Boyfo just donated, but I like the, you know, I'm a fan of the Finnish rule. I'd love to see you challenge yourself with stylized and exaggerated art. I've done, you know, quite a bit of imaginative work this year already, and some stylized work. You can go look at the creature design, the boss fight challenge last one. You might have missed that. I did a pretty crazy, you know, creature design there. All right. And we can see a lot of the same kind of construction ideas in this one. You know, by the way, there's like almost head height stuff in like every single one of these. Almost all of these just look a little bit small. This one's probably proportional. But the head like a little bit too big, a little bit too short in most of these. And it's challenging, you know. This guy, I think his head is a little bit larger or something. Like he's not quite as many head heights as you would normally expect. I tried to donate and YouTube crashed. It hates Jame on a personal level. Love to meet this Jame guy. Yeah, let's do this one actually. Like, I think this person looks like they're using the charcoal and laid paper, which is nice. We can talk about how to use some of this stuff. So the same torso stuff basically applies. Your darkest dark here. By the way, you know, the head is in essence, you know, it's a 3D form. And we can kind of think of it a little bit more like box-like. This guy's head is like very squarish and boxy, right? So if it was like a, you know, a Madonna, like the religious figure, it's going to be very egg-like, right? And I'm not going to tell you to like square off the chin super hard on Madonna, because that's just not the way that like that face looks. Like she's going to have big eyes and just very rounded egg-like parts. I have no idea what a Madonna icon looks like. But I know that she's very egg-like and very rounded. This guy is very square, like super square. Like this guy is like basically a planar head. His forehead literally comes down, you know, like this. Like this is like textbook planar head. You know, this is what this guy's head looks like. And so that's what I'm talking about when I say I want to see kind of the character or these things represented inside of you know, what you do. Inside of the way that you make marks, inside of the way that you think about forms. If it's a super soft woman, I don't want you to draw it like a planar head. But if the guy looks like a freaking like wood carving, then you should draw it a little bit more like a wood carving. So what I want to see here is like, feel free to like, hey, this is the side here or the front here. Like it comes up in this pretty harsh angle. Simplify this stuff, and also it comes back. Shashid 7757926. You're my favorite person in the computer. Thank you. Appreciate the Swedish love. Thank you for the Swedish kronar. I love kronar. I'm croning. I'm croning so hard right now. Oh, let me just take this to black so it can be seen. Right, we have like a front, side, you know, and this is the big cranial mass. And then you can kind of get in here a little bit more. I'm drawing like on your layer. I have enough for a McChicken now, so I appreciate you. I'm probably gonna crush one after this stream, right? And then you can kind of carve in a little bit, but you don't want to like over exaggerate it because you can see kind of the angle between those. Like even I'm certainly over exaggerated here. Isn't too much. You know, and then also like look how far over the corner of the other brow is over here. It comes over to like here, right? So like this front of the face, you know, in essence, takes up like this much. And we really want to see that. Whereas, well, I'm on the layer, so I can't go back and forth. Your face is kind of a little bit compressed. Everything, the shape language of it is a little bit rounded, and it's a little bit kind of shifted over to the side. So I just want to make things like a little bit more squared off, a little bit more boxy. It represents him a bit more. In everything we do, we want it to be, you know, that's why I like this type of stuff. I think if you approach it correctly, you don't just like photocopy. If you approach this stuff with the right mindset, it actually does allow you to really develop basic skills that can be used for stylization or for, you know, the development of any style. Eat your veggies? I had veggies. None of y'all. Dude, I have been fiber maxing. I had a bowl of broccoli before the stream even started. All right, I had psyllium husk this morning. All right, those are the two sources. But I'm like probably like 18 grams of fiber deep, and we're at 3 p.m. We're at 3 p.m. I could go crush an Olipop later. I'm gonna hit 30 today. I'm like immune to prostate cancer at this point, or colon cancer. My prostate is probably connected. Getting fear-mongered by, says the New York City elite from the island, you know which one, tells me I'm getting fear-mongered by big colon cancer. Colon cancer's real. All right, guys, you got a fiber max. It's the most important thing. The most important thing is fiber maxing. It is a year of fiber. I want all of y'all. Get an Olipop later today. Actually don't. They're like $2.50 a can. It's really ridiculous, and most of the flavors suck. But hit that 20 grams a day minimum. You know, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, put the chia seeds in there. Hell yeah. It's good for you. It's good for you. Put some chia seeds in your McChicken. What was I talking about? I have no idea. Shape language and stuff. Like, most of the construction on this is nice. Like, I actually like, you know, what we have here is we have the torso, and we have a light source coming from the right and above. So everything that's facing upwards and in general to the right is lit. And I think you did a nice job. Separated everything off on the front plane, and you made it dark. That's like the big steps. Like, there's a lot that's going well on this. Oh, and this is a nice, actually, example. This is this is a lower res than it actually is, because I'm, you know, copying them all into a canvas. You're using the charcoal and stuff. The reason why your charcoal is so smudgy and why it kind of is tough to make it darker, one is because you're using just fine charcoal. You should use Conte pencil, Pierre Noir 2B. That is the secret sauce to make things darker. After I block in the figure, I'm using pretty much entirely Conte. There's a lot of Conte in the process. Just the vine charcoal is soft. You can erase it easily. But also, you're on a smooth paper. So using that, and I said this earlier in the stream, you can go back and look, but using the Strathmore, I'll write it down here. Strathmore 300 charcoal. You need a little bit of texture in your paper. Charcoal laid finish. Oh, frick. Finish. Not the ones in chat. Charcoal laid finish. Strathmore 300 charcoal laid finish. That's the paper you want. It's the best economical paper. You can get the Arches paper too that I mentioned at the beginning of the stream. But you need a little bit of texture for the charcoal to sit into on the paper. It's all smudging around and getting really light and kind of floating on top of the paper here because you don't have the right, because you have a too smooth of a paper. That's what's happening. The stream brought to you by Big Toilet. You're gonna need a big toilet with the big fiber. But that's what it's all about. What do I think of hyperrealism? I think I talked about it in a video, didn't I, guys? I probably talked about it in a video. I think it's just too photographic. You know, for me, there's not enough understanding that goes into a lot of this stuff. Or also, I just don't want to do what a camera does. Which is hard to tell people because I like realism. I love realism. I love 19th century realism. I love naturalism. But they don't do at all what a camera does. Very, very different task. So it's a bit of a hard sell. Okay, so we have our rib cage here, which is this egg-like form, right? Boom. Boom. Where is the pit of the crotch? Right down here. If we take a plumb line upwards, I'm 5 million layers down. If we take a plumb line upwards, it takes us to the pit of our neck, right? So these are aligned. So we want to make sure that this comes out far enough. Right? It comes down, and then it curves its way in. So I think like a really important tip, guys, think about where you're starting and where are you ending. Use the plumb line to check how aligned they are. Then pull that line with a nice amount of rhythm in there. Right? It's gonna help you a lot. But also, I don't hate hyperrealism. I need to make this very, very clear. I think you're really lame and really boring if you just sit online and you shit on modern art and contemporary art all day long and you say that it's not like classical art, it takes no skill, it's stupid. I think it's really lame. I think it's really boring. I don't give a shit about modern art, contemporary art. I don't care at all. But also, I don't waste my time thinking about it. Or I don't think that there's some sort of grand moral imperative to what I do that makes me better than other people. I just like what I do because it has certain properties. I like the fulfillment. I like the fulfillment of building the skills, of progressing, of learning new things, of bringing meaning and purpose to my life from what I do. But people can find that from something else. And it's not my fucking job to tell people what is and isn't right or morally okay or good for them or whatever. And also, I'm not beholden to classical ideals because most of you guys don't know what classical art even is. You just have like a vague set of ideas that are like somewhat realistic or something in your head that you think is classicism. And it's not actually what classical art is, because most people referring to classical art or classical, studies, it doesn't relate to anything historically. It's just a vague set of ideas that they like. And I'm not beholden to any sort of set of ideas like that. And I like to try new things all the time and incorporate cool stuff from all sorts of amazing media that's progressing right now. The Spider-Verse would not have been possible without modernist and contemporary art movements and abstraction. I think they're sad that the banana on the wall gets more attention than a handcrafted portrait. Most of your guys' handcrafted portraits aren't worth shit. Most of them back in the day weren't worth shit. You gotta actually make your art meaningful to somebody. I don't fucking know why the banana on the wall is just an internet controversy thing. They were doing newspaper critic controversy back in the 19th century. It was all the same shit. It's just same shit, different day, I'm very off topic. Very off topic. Yeah, I don't think effort is necessarily equated to merit. I haven't seen the new Spider-Man trailer. Finding that center line, finding the motion of the body, right? And then we have kind of we have our central rib cage, right? We can think of like the front plane of the rib cage as kind of going along this nipple line. And then also I told you, you can kind of flow those abs down from the nipple through that ASIS area and they curve inwards. The abs connect inwards to the pit of the crotch down here. Rage bait goes way back further than the modernist movement, guys. You have people in the 1860s making salon paintings that were super gory and filled with blood. That way they could get newspaper reactions of people saying that this is too heinous for the world, for the public to see, and that this is disgusting art. They were just trying to farm newspaper critics in the 1860s. And this goes, I'm sure, hundreds of years further back. I'm sure it goes back to the Greeks, you know. People have been rage baiting forever, guys. Humans are, if there's any part of human nature, you know, it's not like a modernist thing. That was like a theme for a while in like salon art, was making like the biggest, bloodiest, goriest painting possible with like a bunch of executed people and beheadings and stuff. And they were just trying to like farm newspaper critics saying that it was like, you know, vile, disgusting art and that art should be beautiful, you know? They did the same thing. Art should be beautiful back then. We hate this beautifully, insanely well-painted, realistic, you know, gory painting because it's not beautiful, right? It's the same fucking shit as the people that are like, oh, you know, modern art is stupid. We should paint beautiful classical works. And then they point to like the 19th century and they end up pointing to the same stuff that they were critiquing back in the day. You guys just, you gotta go read an 1860s newspaper and get back to me, all right? I don't want to have a conversation with anyone who hasn't read an 1860s newspaper. Okay. And then we have our obliques, right? Our obliques are kind of like these big blocks that go on either side. And they connect directly to that ASIS point, right? And it's a wedge shape, right? So we have a front and a side. And you've done a nice job here. The front is in shadow, right? And the side, which is getting light, like everything from the side, is getting light. So this is where you want to come in, and you want to take that charcoal pencil, which is going to get much darker, Conte pencils more specifically, and you can hatch in some accents there. And then also, you know, make the stump patch, not with vine charcoal, but with a ton of Conte pencil just rubbed in there, and really get a bunch of that loaded up on your stump and dig it in there and push these darks down. You want to use a nice big stump, and I cannot overestimate or underestimate whatever. I can't estimate how much Conte pencil you need on the stump. It's a lot. It's a lot of Conte pencil that you need. You need to put down a lot. Everyone's always too conservative with it at first. You really got to pack a lot in here, and focus on getting like the darkest points as the edges of the shadows. And then you can take another stump that's just like generally dirty and big and kind of just drag it all around and normalize everything. The lights, the darks in the underwear here, they're much lighter than the skin, but they're still darker than the skin. We don't want it to be too close to the skin value. It is still darker. I don't know. Conte pencil is much stickier and stumps a lot better than compressed charcoal. It's also darker. Compressed charcoal, once you stump it around a little bit, it doesn't stay quite as dark. It's close, and people did historically use compressed charcoal, but Conte just works a little bit better. And you can kind of keep coming in here, loading up your stump and depositing it along the edge, right? And then also remember that quote from Bonnat, when you're drawing the feet, look at the head, right? So when you're drawing the feet, think about this size and compare it to the head. It should take up about this amount of space right in here. Definitely just coming out a little bit too small, which is it's an easy fix. It's an easy fix. Boom, just like that. right? All of this ends up getting pushed down. You couldn't have achieved these darker values. You could not have achieved these darker values with just fine charcoal on a smooth paper. It just doesn't get that dark, so don't beat yourself up for it. And then also you take the charcoal pencil and you can hatch in here too. And when I say charcoal pencil, sorry, I mean the Conte pencil. You can hatch into here. And these kind of hatched accent marks, go zoom in on drawings on the Halftone Studio website, and you'll see they carry about 90% of the weight of the drawing. They really are spectacularly effective in how much of the weight of the drawing they carry. I can pull a picture of my drawing into here. Just to show this. Oops, that didn't go in. Please? No? Really? Right. So, get the stream chat back up. Right. This is all Conte pencil. I also save all of my Conte sharpenings in all of my Conte sharpenings I just save in here. I dump the little sanding pad out into here. And sometimes I'll just dip the stump directly in here and then kind of rub it around on the page. That's why you see like this sort of charcoal here that's like falling down the page. And then yeah, I'm kind of putting that dark spot like directly onto these dark areas, and then I'm kind of rubbing it outwards. And I'm taking a bigger stump that I don't dip directly into the charcoal, but is just dirty. And I kind of just, whoa, I'm not on the, I need to be on another layer. All right, I dip it in, and then I take the bigger stump here and I kind of just, I pull it out along inside, in the direction, and then there's lots of areas too where you kind of need to just knock down the edge of a shadow. That's where you're going to just throw some hatch marks in, some, hard cast shadows always have hard edges. That's where you kind of knock areas down. And you realize you actually don't need to put much detail into areas at all in order to get, get the effect that you want. A lot of good stuff happening in that one, though. For real. Please post a new video about not using artificial intelligence for art. There's about 500,000 videos that you could watch about that online. I can't think of a video topic that has been played out less than that. I generally like to provide my opinion on things that I have a nuanced take on, and I think that I also do mention why I don't like AI in my video, why you need to learn how to draw and how to start. I very briefly mention, but I think that there's not really a whole lot of like nuanced take that I can give other than just it's not very fun. I don't really care that much about the AI debate. It's just like, it's not interesting to me. And using AI is not super interesting to me either. It's basically the same thing for all of you, right? One more thing that I will note, unless I have somebody to note it on in here. It's like almost all of these just have like head height issues. And then some of these like just could use a stronger delineation of like where the light and shadow shapes are, right? And how that is connecting to the form, right? And then also like putting in those sharper accents pushing down those values more, just using more Conte charcoal. It's going to be a big help here. Head height for you. Pretty much all the same in here. Pretty much all the same. Same with this. It's just head height. This is like, it's pretty solid. There's a lot of stuff that's going on here. Also, you could just put a lot more shadow, charcoal into these shadows here in order to actually differentiate the light from the dark. We're kind of getting a little bit too much muddiness crossing into each other here. We really want to keep those as stronger separate groups. And likewise in here as well. And likewise in here as well. And likewise in here as well. Yeah, I guess I have to show this. Every stream I have is a video that's on my channel. It won't be like I'm not gonna like cut it up and edit it, but all my past streams, if you click on my channel, I think people don't notice this because it's in a different tab. If you click on my channel, there's a live button. If you click on that, it shows you all my past live streams in full. So guys, our lights and our shadows, I'm not gonna go through the entire lighting demo, but our lights and our shadows are two separate groups. And the lights and the darks, they can't mix, okay? And what happens when we get these reflected lights that get brighter and they kind of mix into the same value as our halftones, like in areas in here, and then those wind up within the shadows, is it basically flattens out the image and it confuses us. It confuses our eyes because it's just not possible in physics in the world for our reflected light areas to be as light as our actual light areas. Because in order for an area to be in reflected light or to be in shadow, it has to be a shadow. And if it was receiving more light, then it wouldn't be a shadow. So basically, it just makes it impossible for it to exist. So with this, all we want to do is just provide a more unifying tone of darkness along all of our shadows in here. And, just to be very, very clear, we have reflected light inside of the arm, very strong reflected light inside of here. This value is 3 out of 10. You can see on the Photoshop color picker. The value of the shadow right next to it is 2.5 out of 10. You can see on the color picker. There is a 5% difference in between the light and the dark here. But for you, you're 76 out of 100 and 46 out of 100. So you're making like a 30% jump. Or 30% jump in value, where in actuality, it's only about a 5% modulation. Now, you don't have to match the values of your drawing to this exactly in order for it to look good. You can have it however you want, but the relationships between values need to stay the same, right? So if the reflected lights are about 5 to 10% lighter than our shadows, then you can make your whole drawing really bright if you want. Right, like I could just do a levels adjustment on this, right? And I can make the whole drawing really bright if I wanted to, but the 5% difference basically stays the same. These stay equally close to each other. The reflected lights and shadows stay equally close to each other. Or I can make it really, really dark, and it's fine. But the relationships between things have to stay the same. So what's happening here isn't that like your raw values are off. Your raw values can be whatever you want, but for you, the relationships are off. The distance that things are apart from each other are off. So all we need to do is just kind of bring this stuff closer together, more unified, without it getting jumping values very quickly for all our reflected lights. And it's going to make the drawing feel much, much, much more cohesive. And you can really see just how far you can get away with that. Let me pull in, I'll pull in a French Academy drawing again. This one's a really good example. This one's a good example too. You can see really like just how far you can get away with this stuff. In a drawing like this, where like, hey, these are our lights, these are our shadows. They're two very, very, very separate groups. There is reflected lights in this, but it's a very small modulation. There's so little change in value through all of this, and there's also just so little detail inside of here. Incredible, look at this face. barely anything going on inside of here at all. Reflected light should never be brighter than any of the light values, exactly. You don't, but look how much detail there is, right? That's because the big relationships are right. There is a strong difference between the lights and the shadows, and the form of it is very, very clear. And you actually don't need that much. You don't need all those super strong, punchy reflected lights in order to show form. And it's not the way that it works in reality either. It's just, that's not the way that real life works. You could see it as well in a drawing like, this is great. Again, like very, very, very clear delineation between lights and darks. Also, if we want to just talk about rhythm in drawings, man, it is crazy. Just look at the rhythm in these drawings. Like, you get this beautiful flow out through the hand. Like this finger comes out through here. You have like these beautiful motions like this. You kind of have this like toe that comes outwards. You kind of get these crisscrossing motions, like this big S curve throughout the body. Oops. Big S curve throughout the body. I think like this, and also, like this. And the level, like, again, there's all these bumps, ups and downs inside of an arm or hand like this. But if you try to draw it like that, if I just tried to, like, I'm going to be really accurate here. I'm actually, like, not trying to mess up. I'm going to try to draw. Here's that shoulder. And then it comes out. And there's, like, a little bump for the tricep in here. And then it comes in and it connects to tricep tendon. And then this comes out. And on the other side, like this, comes in and connects. And there's the deltoid in here. And then on the elbow, we have like this bump over here, and then there's this thing that kind of comes out and then over, and then there's this wrist bump in here, and then there's a bump here, and then there's a bump here, and then it comes in like this, and then it comes like this. No matter how hard you try, or no matter how good you are at drawing like this is always going to be really bumpy and really exaggerated and out of control. The proportions get bad, everything gets bad. Right? It just looks goofy and awkward. It looks kind of like the Michelin Man, marshmallow guy, like a snowman. Everything gets exaggerated. Because like the most important thing, and I'm drawing on the layer, so I have to hit Control Z 50 times. Right? The most important thing about this arm is this. Right? And until we put in the most important thing, then we can't put in the second most important thing. Right? And now we can say like, okay, here's that wrist bone coming out. Here's it slotting into the hand, expanding outwards from here. Here's that straighter segment in here. Right, maybe this more rounded segment in here. We have the triceps in here. Since we already have that like motion and rhythm baked into it, like it's just so much stronger with less effort. And everything can be made simpler and stronger at less effort if we kind of build it out in the right way. And that same, that type of logic can be applied to your shadows too, of course, right? Just by grouping them a little bit closer and keeping them more separate from the lights. So your lights here are plenty fine. We just don't want to mix, shadow with halftone. Need to make sure the delineation between shadows and lights are very, very clear. And, if you see something this is why I like charcoal. Because if we are working with charcoal, we have a full value range from the white of the paper to the black of the Conte pencil. And so if we see something that's dark or like black or close to black, we can just put it down as black with our Conte pencil. And we don't have to worry about like, oh, well, my graphite, it only gets this dark. And so I need to shift the value key of the drawing all the way up here. And that's going to make that my lights need to be more light and more compressed. And then my darks need to, like, we don't got to worry about all of that, right? We can just simply work on observing and putting things down as we see them and studying those value relationships. A really good example of this is in the hair. Look at the value of this highlight of the hair, right? This is the general dark of the hair. It's 2 out of 10. This is the highlight of the hair. It's 14 out of 10. So it's a difference of about 10%, right? You have 76 to 2. So you have about a 50% change, or 5 out of 10 in value. So just because it's a highlight doesn't mean that it's not within the value grouping of the hair, right? And so we need to respect our groups. The drawing gets stronger. Respect the groups. Respect the groups. Most important thing in all of art, probably. What is your drawer that expired you, brother? What? What is your drawer that expired you, brother? Have I seen how Andrew Kadima draws? Yeah, he just goes right in. If you have enough experience with anything, you can just go right in. You know, especially if you're just doing portraits on a small scale. He works quite small, I believe, too. So if you're just doing portraits on a small scale, you have a ton of experience with portraits. It's very doable to just like, you know, do an eye, then do the other eye, if you have years of experience built up. Andrew, ton of respect to you if this gets clipped and sent to you. You're a very good artist. I do not think Andrew could do that for an entire figure. If almost anyone could do that for an entire figure, I would be very impressed. I mean, I really wouldn't be impressed. I would be like, this seems like a very kind of a silly way to approach a figure. There's just too many parts that are moving in all sorts of crazy dynamic ways. It just wouldn't be a good idea. It's doable with a portrait because it's, you know, again, it's like one self-contained thing. But with a figure, you have like all of these big forms that need to wedge and interlock, and then they also need to have like rhythm and balance and proportion throughout the entire thing. What Andrew does is impressive, though. No doubt about it. Yeah, I'm going to talk about color. Splash, I always have the same critiques about color for you. I think you do. Well, maybe you don't. I think I always end up saying I think you just pick the colors off of the background. There's JPEG compression on yours, so it's like kind of hard to say. Maybe you don't. It doesn't really matter. Shit. There we go. But I think the colors are kind of like a little bit grayed out here. There are the same value issues too, right? Like we can have much stronger grouping on our shadows and stuff throughout this stage. We're not quite at a stage where we have, I never do though. Oh, okay. I think the colors here are, they don't look picked off the reference now. They look a little bit closer to this too. I think from a distance they do, but when I get closer, they don't. And I feel like you're kind of modulating like you're making things darker, and maybe you're like increasing the saturation or decreasing the saturation as you go. But you're not playing enough with the hue and the saturation in general, right? So like when I look at this chest, especially when I look at these arms, especially, like I see a lot of red and I see very, very saturated reds in here. So when I'm like mixing for this area, you know, I'd definitely be putting more red in there. I'd be increasing the saturation. You make it a little bit darker. You know, this whole shadow too, to me, it feels a little bit darker, a little bit more red. there is a lot of saturation. I think it's like kind of scary when you have like a color picker in digital art, and you're like, and you know people do this in traditional art too, but I think it's especially scary when you're looking at this color picker and you're like, well, what value do I want to make something? It looks really dark. You know, people do this all the time where they see something that's black and they're like, okay, yeah, what do I pick for that? Well, I can't make it black because it's probably not black, and black's scary. So then they make it like 7 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 or like 20%. But if you see something that's black, then you should just make it black, right? And it's kind of the same with color as well, where people, I think, are like a little bit scared of like pushing the saturation up super high because they think that that might not be natural. But there are stuff that, you know, all sorts of stuff is really saturated. You know, and you're kind of undershooting the saturation by like, it looks like 20% or so on like almost every part, you know, 10%. You know, I wonder if I just took this, just give you like plus 10 saturation. Oh yeah, that takes you there, a lot. It takes you there a lot. And then one other thing that you can do too is like where we have these highlights, these lights, we want to change the color temperature too. So you're kind of, everything is in like this brownish red. But the color of the light here, like we can look at kind of like this most pure part of the light. It is kind of leaning like a lot more bluish in here, a lot more gray, bluish, steely. You know, when I actually pick it, it's not going to be that way. And, you know, everywhere here that's getting hit by this light source, it really does, it loses a lot of that saturation. It's also going to pull, you know, just because it's blue doesn't mean it pulls to like electric blue, but it's going to pull in the direction of blue. Maybe a little bit too much. Right, or maybe not quite so much. So try to modulate your hue too. Maybe a little bit more, keep it a little bit more red, a little more desaturated. And you can kind of group stuff together as well. And truly it doesn't, like if you make the color changes too crazy, it actually really doesn't even matter that much. As long as it's consistent. And I think it reads better as undershooting it, for sure. Yeah, I think that this helps a lot. You know, and I'd constantly be adjusting the hue, right? So like I'm kind of kicking this like a little bit more red in these areas. I'm kicking all of this stuff in the lights just a little bit more towards that cool yellow side. You know, there's areas in the reflected lights in here where we're getting like really dark, super saturated red. Actually not really dark because it's reflected light, right? But very saturated. I think some of these adjustments in the hue are going to make a really big difference, and maybe that's why it feels color pick to me, because it just feels like, I think when people like color pick a lot, it feels like the colors always feel kind of dry because they just like pick a random color and then they kind of like stick it all over without like a lot of intention in how the colors are varying back and forth. I would still try to push this down. I know there's a lot of reflected light in here, but it's like always better to trend on the side of too little variance than too much. What's your Discord name, person that submitted a week ago? You might just be in here and you don't see it. I don't need to see the time lapse. Yeah, modulate the hue a little bit more and push your saturation a little bit. I think it'll make a big difference. And also just like experiment with color choices as well. Okay. Now we're kind of getting into the grouping of people. I think that, you know, the proportions are all right. There's still people who have like head counting issues and kind of like some bigger issues. But most of the stuff from here on out is like decent in the proportions and the approach. But there are some issues. With this person, it's the same kind of reflected light being too bright. And kind of lack of unity that I gave to the other person. You can have as much color variation as you want in the shadows if you want to do that. But just the relationships between these things are just too far away. Whereas, yeah, especially like there is no light that goes along the collarbone in the photo reference, right? But like that's like pretty much just as bright as the skin. So it just it ends up flattening out the image a lot to the eye if the values aren't unified properly, basically. You have to think about like 3 planes. I think 3 planes for everything. That was the 1, 2, 3 thing. The 1, 2, 3 video that I made. I think this looks a lot better from a distance. And you can put in all the color variation stuff that you want. You just have to have it fit into the correct relationships. The 1, 2, 3 reel that I made that probably most, if not all of you have seen, where I drew the head and I showed how there's kind of 3 planes on things. A lot of people thought that was just like a Loomis method tutorial because I, said that there's thirds of the face. But that's really not the point. The point of this is that it doesn't matter like any piece of form that you're breaking down. It could be a duck, a duck's head. It could be the duck's bill. It could be a human head. It could be a human torso, a human rib cage, whatever. 3 planes of something, being able to see a side, a top, and maybe like a front if this is like a box or something. Being able to see 3 sides of something. It lets us know 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It lets us know that what we're looking at is 3-dimensional. And so we should always be kind of searching for like the 3 biggest planes and the relationships between those planes and how we can establish them. So with the rib cage, you have like this egg, right? And the 3s, fit just into a lot of stuff nicely. So it fits into proportional rules too. But we have this rib cage egg. You get a nipple here and a nipple here. This actually defines very well the front plane from nipple to nipple of the torso, of the rib cage, right? And this is all very front facing. And then very rapidly, you get these side planes that curve around the egg. And when you're looking at a 3/4 view like this, it looks a little bit weird, but the egg curves around so fast, you really don't even see past that far nipple. You only see 1, 2, I guess, and then 3 is like the stomach underside hollow, right? Or if you are seeing like a little bit of that curvature, a little bit of it curving away, you get 1, 2, 3, right? So looking for like those big 3 planes and the relationships between them, right? Like on something like this. As you stretch it all when drawing? Yeah, I do like yoga like pretty much every day, or physical therapy and stretching, and I think like the McGill Big 3 is really good for your back. Core strengthening stuff is really good for your back, but also, I do like child pose and frog pose and some hip strengthening stuff most days of the week. So you have the rib cage in here, right? And then like you have this kind of front plane that connects between the nipples. You have this like arch too. And the whole, left plane of the rib cage is in shadow, right? And then the middle plane of the rib cage is getting kind of a mid-tone in the reference. And this side plane is very bright, it's very light. Right? It's like this. So like this is the big relationship. Now, when we have this side of the pec that's facing towards that direction, now we get to add a little bit of lightness towards there. And when we have this side of the pec that's facing this way, well, now it catches a shadow like this, right? And the rib cage is a little bit more complicated than just that. The top portion of the rib cage is kind of curving away, so it gets like a little bit darker in the reference too. You get kind of a little bit of the arch here. With the abs, we get kind of this column here, and the column is this central mid-tone. Everything on the side gets darker, right? Everything on this side gets lighter. But then, of course, we have the side of the abs coming down on this side and on this side, right? Our belly button's here in the middle. And this is like a little wedge. So this side of that little column gets light, shadow this. This one, light, mid-tone, shadow, right? That's how we create the feeling of form. So we should be looking for kind of those big three relationships, right? You don't really even need the reflected lights and the shadows. Of course it does help. Of course they're in there. But they emerge really naturally, by just, I'm always focusing and drawing, the majority of my drawing time is on these transitioning points at the midtones. And so these naturally just get darker, and then I kind of just drag out this tone, and you naturally get a little bit of light, variation between the darkest points and the lightest points. And then I do kind of erase out just very gently to create some reflected lights on points that are important. I'm of the philosophy you can sit however you want. Just do yoga or some form of exercise to balance out the damage that you do to yourself. Guys, don't send me friend requests on Discord. It's so annoying because it gives me a red dot notification, and you send me a friend request. I don't know why, because 90% of you don't send me a message either. You just send me if you have to DM me, I'm probably not going to reply. But DM me, right? With whatever you want to say. I don't care. I'm probably not going to look at it, might not reply, whatever. But don't just give me a notification for your own, because you're getting off to it, all right? I don't want the friend request notification. You can DM me without sending me a friend request. You're only sending me a friend request just to make yourself happy. But I get the notification. I don't want the red dot. I'm gonna get like 20 now. But I'm blocking you if you send it to me, okay? Why would you send a friend request to someone if you don't even have a message to send to them? It doesn't even make sense. I get so many, so frequently. I think they just want me on their friends list, but it's not Xbox Live. It's not Xbox 360. I'm not like Optic Predator on your friends list. It's not cool. You don't have a phase member on your friends list. You can block friend requests? Yeah, but like I want people that I have legitimate friends that friend me sometimes. They don't want to be friends with me because they don't want to talk to me. They just want me on their friends list. But that's not an invitation to talk to me either. If you want to talk to somebody, go to my Discord and you can find someone to talk to in there. As long as you're not weird, just talk about art, all right? I don't want to hear you guys talk about anything else. I just ban people nowadays, all right? This one I wanted to talk about a little bit because there's a lot of stuff that's happening really nicely in here. Like, you're definitely someone who knows a lot about anatomy and stuff like that. But I think when we're doing some of these figure studies, like, you can have different purposes. The purpose that I think is missing in a lot of figure studies, especially for people like you who are good at anatomy and form and stuff like that, is likeness and understanding kind of the characteristic traits of somebody and what makes them look like them. And like all the anatomy here is like, you know, correct enough, and the form looks decent, and the proportions look decent, and the rhythm looks reasonably decent. But I think that like this doesn't look anything like the guy. You know, the guy doesn't have traced out muscles. The guy doesn't have. He does have a lot stronger shapes in the midsection. Yours is kind of like a little bit skinny. The guy also has hair. What the hell happened to his hair? I think there's a lot of benefit and a lot of value in, you know, having some drawings where I'm not telling you to photocopy the reference. I don't want you to copy the reference, right? Like when I bring up, I'm going to keep bringing up French academic drawings. All right. Like you don't get to, you can't sit there and tell me that this is a photocopy of the reference. It's not. There's a ton of creative decision making going on here. Look at this freaking hand, man. Like these marks are chaotic. You know, he's misdrawing stuff. You know, the effort is rapid. This is like a potato of a foot. You know, this is like moving back into the distance. You can see, you know, his classmate drawing in the background. This is not just a photocopy of the reference. There's a lot of creative decision making and experimentation and just interest happening in here. But this is a really good study, a character of what this guy looks like, of what his body looks like, of his muscles, the pose, the expression. And if you just were to like kind of, you know, oh, here's what he looks like. Here's what he looks like bald, and, you know, this is the form of the head. You know, everything is just generic mannequin forms, and, you know, I'm just going to study as a serratus connect in, and then this comes in here. Like, you kind of boil a lot of, like, what makes this guy unique and interesting out of him by, like, treating him like a mannequin that you can pose on, you know, Pose Maniacs or whatever. And I think there's more to, you know, the mannequin practice is really great, especially if you do a lot of imaginative work or anime work or stylized work. But there is also a time where, like, you know, really asking yourself, like, what is the movement of this pose? Like, what's happening? Like, what is really exciting to me about this pose that I wanted to really think about is that we have this rib cage that's coming down like this, right? This is the rib cage shape in here. And it really feels like it's crunching on top of this midsection, which is getting squashed and stretched a little bit over here, but heavily squashed. And then the hips and stuff are coming out like this. And I think that's, for me, the most exciting part about this pose and characteristic of that. And I think that's the part where this drawing kind of falls apart the most, right? It doesn't really feel like this is a rib cage that's coming down. You know, what's happening isn't just, we don't have a rib cage that's like this, right? We don't have a rib cage that's like this. It's a really great oval. We don't have a rib cage that's like this, and then hips that are like this, and then this. That's not what happened. That's not what's happening in this, okay? This is not what is happening in this. Instead, we have a rib cage that's actually stacked on top of itself a little bit. Let me do it like this. I know this looks the same, but we're tilting that form a little bit more inwards towards us. And instead of seeing kind of just this top section of the rib cage, like if somebody was like leaning back like this, we're actually kind of looking down on them more, right? And we're seeing a little bit more of this cut off section. And then we're seeing those obliques come out from the backside, and they're getting squashed and stretched and, you know, really cut off by this rib cage, which is jutting out in front of them. All right, and then the hips are coming out from inside of here. And so for me, what makes this guy unique, which makes this pose unique and interesting, I think is the part where you're drawing, despite being technically good on most levels, has the hardest time with. And that's kind of the approach that I take with these drawings. That's why it's valuable to do longer drawings, to study the values, to study the character, to study the shapes. You know, especially too, with this guy's face. This guy's got a really squared off chin. He's got really angular points to his face. He's basically like a little planar head. I described that in a past critique. You can go back and watch. Like, we're missing a lot of that angularity and the uniqueness of that guy's head in here as well. And also like this shoulder. Look how we have this like cool like rolling trap connection into here, and then the deltoid that comes out from behind, and this very like ball like structure. You've turned it into like your anatomy diagram. Right? So like I think this is like a technically proficient drawing, but I think it's missing all of the nuance that makes it interesting. Cool. And I think you can fix that. I think you're good enough at drawing to fix that. If sending a friend request is all someone needs to be happy, then why let them send the friend request? If all you need to be happy in life is to send a friend request to me, go outside. Please. Just go do something fun. You gotta, your happiness cannot be contingent on your Discord friend request status with me. Go get a job. Stop giving me little red bubbles. Become a YouTuber. That's a real job. That's a real job. Yeah, the character stuff is I think is really important. And there's lots of like little character stuff that I could kind of pick apart, and all of these that are individually unique. But I think I'd kind of be repeating myself frequently with most of these. This one hurts my head to look at. I can't help but feel like, you know, we're hiding a little bit of some like kind of proportional issues by smudging a bunch. And also I think it could be strengthened a lot. Like again, what I really like about a lot of those French drawings is like the way they use kind of harsher accented lines. You know, it doesn't have to be quite so, but you'll see these kind of accent lines come in and define areas. They don't all have to be outlines. A lot of them are internal too. But it helps kind of describe the form. It helps describe how one thing is coming over on top of another thing. And they exist in the form. You know, this isn't just a stylization thing. They exist in what you're looking at as well. Right. Because the skin folds into itself and it makes a line. If anyone says there's no lines in real life, just tell them to go outside as well. Look at the edge of a building or literally anything in front of them. There's tons of lines in real life. Let me find a good example of some accenting. Actually, this one has tons of accents in it. Right, like, there's all sorts of areas where, like, you can just punch a little bit extra into the form. Right. Just pushing in a little bit darker, these accents into these areas that are very dark. Give a little bit of extra contrast too, especially undersides of the arms, where we have the overlapping folds of the body in here. These actually, they do like a ton of the heavy lifting. There's, you know, I think in the Pratt drawing here, this one's pretty smooth. Some of them kind of, you don't have to do a bunch of them if you can control your values really well. Some people are really very good at just accenting. Other people like to be really smooth. So it is a little bit of personal preference. With this too, I think you just put more time into it. It's just not finished. This one's pretty good. There's a lot of good stuff happening in here. Yeah, I can give a quick critique to this one. A lot of good stuff happening in this one. You know, be careful with values too, not to be too systematic. Like, you know, like it's totally okay to just kind of take like a general shadow tone and just kind of mass it over everything. You know, this is the way that you would work with charcoal. It's very natural in charcoal. And then to like kind of punch it down where you need to punch it down, you know, in these areas, in these areas, in these areas. Kind of getting like a little bit too much variance within the shadows in here. Remember that the changes are only a few percent. So you just got to be careful to make it a little bit more subtle than you think. And that also happens, like, remember to compare, like, yes, we are getting light in here. And yes, the light in here appears very bright, but is it actually bright? Is this actually as bright as this over here? Right? No, it's significantly darker. So make sure you compare everything back to your lightest point and your darkest point. And that's what I said about the planes, right? Everything needs 3 planes, right? So the far plane is a shadow. The mid plane is this kind of mid-tone. Right. And the right facing plane is this light. And then the peck caves inwards, so it gets the shadow tone. This kind of rounds out a little bit more. But the light is logical. It like never really like jumps up, you know, to pure white normally. At least not on human skin. On like metal it might. So like it's pretty unlikely that you're gonna have this light source that's white over here also be like white over here and then like also be like white over here, right? It just doesn't make sense. It might be a little bit lighter, but it's light within the group of this mid-tone, right? And that's really all you need to stand out. And there's lots of like these little pieces in here that are just not 100% standing out. Or they're standing out too much, rather. Just by setting up those big groups, you make a lot of progress. Yeah, and it's like, okay, is this might be lighter than this, but really the difference looks like 3% to me. So like, either, you know, make it all pretty much that or all pretty much this. And then if you want to like modulate a little bit in the values, go you know, be my guest, but keep them closer together. Very good. Your explanation of blocking in the charcoal and then blocking in with charcoal and then shadow midtones with the stump seems really good for learning how to reduce what you see in the lights. Any tips for the same in shadows? I think that same strategy works for the shadows. Yeah, if you just block in like kind of the big difference in light and shadow, then that's how it goes. With you, you know, again, like if you see black, like the hair is black, like why? I think this is like the value slider thing where it's like, oh, I see white, but like I don't know, white doesn't exist in real life. I don't know what you guys are saying to do this. But like, you know, using white is scary and also using black is scary. So like, I'm going to do the whole thing with like only 80% white and only 20% dark. And then like, I don't know, when is it supposed to go down to the real values? I don't really get it because you're just kind of leaving out the ends of the spectrum, but I don't I see this a lot and I don't understand why. Like best case scenario, you're just going to redo work that you already did. Worst case scenario, you're just reducing the total amount of values that you have. And I don't see the point. You know, the rest of it is fine for the most part. Just kind of keep pushing the drawing a little bit and it's pretty accurate. think you can use like some harder shapes too. You don't need to airbrush like absolutely everything. And also like this is make room for your highlights. All right, I just talked to the last guy about how this is not the same value as this, right? Can you use a curve adjustment to like make this, or the level adjustment to make this? Maybe a curve adjustment. You bring everything 20% like down to here, and you bring like everything up to here, and then you, yeah. Except, you know, now that you still have only one value for your lights, or for your shadows, right? So I'm in the mask. Very good. Huge adjustments. All right, let's get into the final few people. I have less and less thoughts as we move on with these, but most of these look pretty decent. Yeah, with Oksana, you started like very kind of abstractly, which is fun. I like to do that too. You know, it just depends on what you want to get out of a study. Interestingly, I for both of you, you know, I really do want to see. Let's bring it to the reference. I guess I need some reference. It looks solid. Can I get rid of that? Oh, that I drew on the layer. Let me grab that photo again. You know, the problem with like not doing a proper drawing sometimes, and you can do it with paint too, but the problem with not being able to plan it is like you just get some bumps and stuff. It's just, if you don't do this first, right? If you don't do this first, you are 100% always going to make stuff a little bit too strong and a little bit too bumpy. And it loses a lot of the nice kind of gesture of a lot of these parts. You know, even with kind of how these things flow together, the tricep, tendon, or the tricep, it comes out like this, right? But then it kind of hooks back in, and it has like this kind of flatter tendony part where it comes in and connects to the elbow. That's why you see it like this, and then it kind of comes back and then goes under. This is the brachioradialis muscle coming up in front of it, actually, from this position. But you've kind of just, you see it's kind of the same shape, same size, repeated 3 times. And anytime you do anything like that, you end up, you know, making the Michelin Man, you know. Or like Popeye or whatever. You're Eastern European. I don't even know if you guys don't have Michelin Man or Popeye, probably. Maybe you do. Maybe a Popeye. Popov. So you got to be careful with repeating shapes, especially of the same size. And pretty much you can always kind of downplay it and think about like how these things kind of come together and then also flow back out. With this too, you can kind of flatten out a little bit and then like hook back in a little bit harder here. And you get kind of a stronger overlap. This is again the brachioradialis muscle. the biggest muscle in the forearm. When I say Michelin Man, I'm talking about the tire guy. I'm not talking about the French Star, the Michelin star restaurant. Hold on. I'm talking about this guy. I don't know if this is an American thing. It's a tire brand. It's the same guy? It's the same thing? They do tires and restaurant stars? Oh my god, it's the same guy. And he's dummy thick. He's got it all going on. Who would have thought? He could cook and he could tire at the same time. All right, my bad. I guess the French are eating tires. Cool. Much like Splash, Michael, I think I tell you every time you do a painting to up the saturation a lot. I tell this to Jacob every time too. You know, there is like aren't like 20% of men colorblind? No offense. You're gonna have to, no offense, Michael. You might be a little bit colorblind. It might just be a skill issue. And that's great because you can fix it. If you're colorblind, you can probably fix it. You can just pump more saturation to everything you do. But pretty much every time I tell you to just make it more saturated. Like, I'm giving this like a 50% more saturation, 60% before I'm hitting kind of the level of colors. Maybe, Jacob says it's the PNG upload. If I download it, well, this one looked desaturated even in the preview. Here, I'm gonna open it in my browser, and I'm gonna right-click Save As, and it will come in a little bit more saturated, I imagine. Sometimes this happens. Oh my god, it's 9,000 pixels tall. Okay. Wait, let's check. This is... Yeah, okay. The PNG download did kind of nerf you like 10%. I'd still say you're coming in like 30% too dark. Or too desaturated. That is interesting. If you right-click copy, it makes it less saturated. Yeah, okay, we're down from 60% to 30%. Color blindness is just you. Listen, man, I'm trying to help him with I'm trying to give him a little bit of copium. How would I mix these tones? That's hella saturated. That's me. I was like, oh, that's a kind of really interesting stroke of pure alizarin there. Let me just sit back and squint here. Yeah, I think that you can mix, you know, tones in here a lot richer. So you could be putting a lot more red, like cad red, yellow ochre, maybe even some cad yellow. I have using it a lot more. A little bit darker too, because if you have those tones be darker, they're capable of reaching higher saturations. So I think pushing down some of your values will help you out a little bit in these areas. Also, kind of coming into early on, start of your painting, like bigger brushstrokes to knock out kind of areas like this. This looks all right. I would maybe try to mix some cad yellow or even, you know, some grays or even maybe even a little bit of ultramarine, just a tiny amount, into your highlights just to kind of get a nice temperature contrast. And then these can probably be a little bit darker, a little bit more saturation ochre. Maybe just more saturation. So I'm picking the colors. I'm picking the boosted saturation colors, and then I'm still making them darker and more saturated. I think flesh tones tend to be very saturated. It is a little bit of a value thing though, because you know we can be a little bit darker through these areas. Whoa, what's going on here? Says Caterpillar. We're getting ready. We're getting increasingly closer to Cat's critique, and then I'm gonna skip over it at the last moment. More like edge of pillars. Oh, I did the thing where I took the light from over here and tried to put it over here, but that's exactly what I just warned against for like the past 3 people. So it's very easy to do. My chat just died. Oh, there we go. It's very easy to do. Oh, that's my voice. There we go. And then what you can do too is take a fan brush. And drag from your darks. You can take up a little bit of halftone in your brush too and kind of push some of your halftone into your dark. You know, drag some of your halftone into your light into your halftone. This is what the fan brushes are for. Slightly stronger tonal contrast in here. Right. And that makes the world of difference. It makes the world of difference. Show me your fan brush, please, he says. Okay. It's in oil. It's in oil. Hold on. They're very oily. Okay. Varying size fan brushes. I use some of them just straight up to apply the paint. And then I use like half of them just to like use like any other brush. And then I use the other half to like drag a section of paint to each other. But you don't want them to be, because there's a lot of fan brushes out there. It took me a while to find some that I like. There's a lot of fan brushes out there that that are very like soft synthetic, and they don't, they're too soft to pull oil paint. So you need to find some that are bristle and that are not quite so soft. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie, the best fan brushes I've ever gotten, well, they're these, are off, you know, any Chinese site for like $5-10. Those ones are Marie's brand, you know, like AliExpress, Temu, whatever, I don't care. Those are the best brushes that I've found at my local art store. They don't carry any good ones. But yeah, this makes all the difference. You can be jamming a lot more alizarin and maybe cad red into here too. Using somebody said, what size paper should you have for like counting heads and stuff? Generally with figure drawing, and there is a guide on how to do this linked in the challenge thread. You can go back and read it if you didn't read it. But generally, figure drawings, bigger is better. It depends on how much time you're going to spend. If you only have an hour, then I wouldn't bother working at 18 by 24. But if you have more than an hour, you know, if you have a decent amount of time to put into it, I would recommend 18 by 24. It's about A2 size. I think that's like about 40 by 50 cm if you're European. Yeah. And I think that that's a nice size to work at. Bigger just means higher resolution. You can put more into it. So it's really difficult to count heads and get accurate measurements and stuff like that on a small piece of paper. Yeah, stronger midtones, like still 50% more saturation. Like it's okay that this pushes like basically to white. And this is like kind of washed out by the glare of the photo too, so that's not entirely your fault. But I'm still probably pushing like way more red into here. Maybe not quite that much, but close. All of this feels much more red to me. It's charcoal. I've talked a lot about different charcoal materials throughout this stream, so just go back and watch it if you want to learn a ton about stuff. Rosemary & Co. handmade brushes from the UK. Yeah, if you like paying a lot of money for your brushes, Rosemary & Co. makes nice ones. Personally, I like cheap, bad quality brushes. I find that they work better and I'm less precious with them. Cool, same stuff. I don't know why I said same stuff. I skipped over Krista. Fuck. The problem is pretty much everyone that is down here has submitted to enough challenges that like I know all your guys' names and stuff like that, and so I want to give you all personalized critique. We're already going 3 hours. I really don't want to go 4, so I'm gonna skip over some of you guys here, and you're gonna have to eat it. Pretty good, Krista. Missing some of the characteristic stuff. Missing some of the character stuff. It matters a lot to me. You know, so like there is a really hard like front plane to his face. There is like this really strong angularity too that I want to see. So I really think it's important to like really show that front plane, show how it comes off, to make it feel like we have that neck coming down. You know, you can pack some like moving, expressive, hatching strokes into here. I think it, you know, that's why I like to charcoal and stump, because you can kind of do that and then also just stump over to get the general tone. You're kind of working probably smaller scale with graphite, so you have a more limited range. How much longer can this guy talk about art? How much longer can you talk with my nuts in your mouth, buddy? Probably a while. Most of the time I'm talking about fiber, going and getting a real job for you guys, not for me, I have one. And tires, yeah, tires. Talked about tires a little bit today. I don't know why I'm correcting the value range. You clearly don't have enough value range with you're just using like graphite or whatever, so it's fine. Yeah, I think an important thing that I said earlier, was for me the most interesting part about this reference is kind of this rib cage here that's sitting down and it's tilting towards the viewer. You know, we're not just seeing a flat rib cage, you know, like this with the neck hole kind of slanted away. We're seeing a rib cage that's tilted more towards us, and we're seeing more of the neck hole coming forward, right? Like this. And what's happening is it's tilting kind of so much in here that we're compressing very heavily and squashing down on top of it. And what happens is if you get stretched out in this section at all, which I think you're a little bit too long, it just makes it feel like it's upright. You kind of miss the whole squash of that. And I think that's the most important part of the pose for the most part. You know, as well as I think just hitting a little bit more angularity on this guy would really improve kind of the characteristic feeling of him as well. Would you try ballpoint pen realism? I already had somebody ask about that earlier. For me, realism is not about the medium that you use. I can do realism in whatever medium I want, but ballpoint pen sounds like a really miserable medium to work in. So no, I don't think I would do that. It sounds really boring. Sounds like a lot more work for less results, probably. Yeah, so I would just compress this down a little bit more, and I think it would really help kind of make those masses feel like they're sitting on top of each other. The light and dark separation and the anatomy and stuff feels pretty good in here. Oh, hey Jake, ever wonder if you would try ballpoint pen realism? Yeah, it's actually the next YouTube video I have coming. So it's gonna be a 6-hour real-time VOD of me drawing a ballpoint pen. You know, I've drawn with pen a bunch. It's cool if you like that stuff. I'm skipping some people here. I have to skip some people. Maybe I'll skip most of you guys, because you guys are more interesting to talk about. You have a lot of the same proportional issues that I talked about up here. Sarah, these looked good. I liked your Leyendecker one more, to be honest, which is interesting because I think you said this one felt less organized, but to be honest, I think this one felt far more organized, because you're kind of forced to when you're working like Leyendecker. Yeah, I feel like this one's stronger than this one. You are kind of working in a compressed range where you're like not pushing to black in areas where you could be pushing to black. I don't know why, but maybe that's a stylistic thing. Yeah, I'm gonna skip you. Sorry. I'm gonna keep talking about drawing stuff. I don't have enough thoughts on it. That aren't the same things that I always say. Yeah, let's do ballpoint pen realism for the next challenge. I actually don't know what the next challenge will be. I kind of want to just do portraits and stuff for still life. We haven't done still life in a while. That'd be kind of fun. York looks pretty good. You could probably kind of get a lot more kind of accurate color variation within this stuff. A lot of the exact same critique I gave Michael. Maybe your values are a bit more unified, but you're kind of like using the same color all over the body, but there's this looks kind of small scale too, I'm not sure. But there's a whole lot of color variation. There's like a lot of like more yellowy tones. There's areas that are more red, kind of cooler and warmer areas. Much darker values down here than there are up here. You kind of just like a generic skin color. So you can kind of push those colors all around the body. Man, you skewed the ref, ... What are you talking about? Who are you talking about? There's 70 people here. 75, I think. This is the same guy that did a cast last time. And what I said last time was that I just feel like a lot of the super smooth technique a lot of the super smooth technique, I think, where you're like, I think there's a lot to this, like, the style of working that is spending a lot of time, like, really drawing on the point and getting kind of these really even gradients in, and then, like, getting the Terminator to be darker. A lot of it isn't very conducive for, it's not very conducive, I think, for like actually, it doesn't improve anything about the drawing other than like kind of it's just like a style that I think takes longer. But the same kind of critique that I gave a lot of people about the ribcage, which I think this one actually does the ribcage quite nicely on, where things get elongated and flattened out, that I gave to Krista a few things back. I think that we are missing some of that here, and just a lot of the characteristic traits in general. There's also areas here where like the hair has a lot of information, a lot of highlights in it that aren't there. You know, like the highlights on the hair in the reference photo are only like 5 or 10% brighter, but here they go all the way up to the white of the paper, so it becomes much lighter. You know, and likewise you have these super dark shadows, but you don't have the same level of darkness in the hair. You know, but I think, you know, allowing yourself to kind of more broader, I think allowing yourself to kind of loosen up a little bit and show kind of how a line comes in and overlaps with another line, you know, and overlaps with another line, would allow you to have a lot more energy and motion into your drawings rather than kind of them being driven by just like how small you can kind of gradate the individual granules of charcoal. You know, like there's a lot of information in here where the collarbone comes up and connects in over to here, right? You know, and then you kind of have this wider, flatter portion of the top of the pecs that come down, and then you have this tricep here, which catches a little bit of, it's actually in shadow, and then there's like a little bit of reflected light in here, and then you have this bicep muscle that comes out here, and this bicep muscle comes out in front, but you can also see a sliver of the tricep behind it. We kind of lose all the information that's happening inside of here, and I think you spend all of it kind of just getting the value to be even. You know, I'd really encourage you to spend some time looking at would really encourage you to spend some time looking at the references on my website, Heffton 2 Studio, because I think you can learn just an incredible amount, you know, especially from how good these drawings are, but then, you know, when you get in close, actually how that it's executed. And you can see, you know, the individual hatches of the eraser in here. You can see kind of the direction these things are pulled in. You can see where they accent, you know, how they're kind of organically shaping form in a way that's, you know, not just kind of very small scale drawing. Even on one like this, that looks kind of maybe like you are from a distance, the actual technique of it up close is not at all. You know, you can see how that Conte pencil gets hatched in, and there's the paper stump getting pulled around. You can see, you know, kind of these stronger lines that overlap and accent off of these other areas. You can see where they have these contour lines pulled in. This is an exceptionally refined one, but, you know, there's a huge range at which these kind of operate at. You can see these little hatch marks here to kind of carve out a plane. These darker accents to create, you know, stronger forms and ripples inside of here. And then using the paper stump to pull outwards and create gradations. Pretty crazy stuff, pretty crazy stuff. So I would really encourage you to spend some time looking at how this stuff is done, because I think it would change the way that you think about this a lot. You know, especially very impressionistic ones like the Pratt one here. You can see just how much like this is being driven solely by like dark accents and like almost no details in the light. Pretty cool. Pretty cool stuff. Cool. You know, the big form stuff is looking good. It feels like very grainy. Jake, we ever return to the Dark Fantasy video? Yeah, it's coming out tomorrow. It will come out eventually. I'm just working on some stuff. Message retracted. I got you. It feels very grainy and like overworked or like erased like a million times. I'm not really sure what's going on with the technique here. I'm not sure if like the paper or the materials you're using is fighting against you. The drawing itself is, it's fine for the most part. You know, you kind of have like this big arch here. But like, I think the next point would be like, okay, like what's happening? Well, we have like this group of muscles that's coming out, and then it comes in, and this is where like that bone is. You get accents along kind of that Terminator line. you have a core shadow and a shadow along the bicep in here, and you get that bicep insertion and like a fold in here where that bicep comes in, and it creates like this. You also have a part that differentiates off of this here. This is where you have like that brachioradialis muscle that comes out and around. You have like a bump here where the traps come in, and then you have that deltoid muscle which comes out and around. Right, so you have like a lot of these primary forms, but you just gotta kind of keep working at it and you know, keep pushing on it a little bit deeper. I'm not really sure what's causing it to feel so messy. I don't know what that is. Maybe I'd suggest working with laid paper. It might take better to what you're using. We got a couple of these. I don't know anything about lithography. I'm not a lithography guy. Alba, the plumb line on this one, like it's nicely executed, but I think the figure feels very kind of off balance, right? Like he kind of feels like he's toppling forward. And you can fix that just by, you know, checking your plumb line earlier on and aligning, I think, like the heel should have been like here. I'm pretty sure it was like right around the end of the clavicle. Cool. Oh, I lost my reference. Okay, I gotta copy it in again. I gotta censor it. We're full cam because I'm censoring right now. Okay. Both of these look pretty good. I like the How to Train Your Dragon Loaflin. I'm sheathing the blade. That's funny. There are a lot of like strong highlights on this. And there's some pretty confusing light sources on this. I think with this one, if you try to chase down every single one of these light sources, like it becomes a little bit too graphic feeling. Kind of have to remember kind of like your big form ideas, right? Like the reason why you have the shadow here is because the abs are like two tubes, right? Like the abs is a tube like this and a tube like this that comes down and connects to the pit of your crotch. And so like you have to get this darker value running on the inside of each of those tubes, right? You know, in general, this one just looks to be darker itself. You have to get it on the inside of that oblique muscle that's running in like this. And in general, I'm going to tone down the whole oblique muscle. Make it fit within the group a little bit better, right? A little bit on the underside of the rib cage too. Kind of tone it all together. It's kind of just running the stump across the whole page there. I have to get it kind of running along that center line in here. In general, this looks fine in here. Very confusing light sources in here. Kind of group this stuff together a little bit more. And I'd really, really make sure, very importantly, that we knock out the underside of this chin right in here, because it's very important. It makes us feel like we're looking upwards at him, right? Hitting kind of the sides of this. It looks like the face is mostly getting top lighting. And underside of the nose. Make the nose like a little bit shorter. Gonna make it feel more foreshortened, like we're looking up at it a little bit more. Lighter planes on the top end of the... Lighter planes on the top of the, what do you call it? Muzzle. On the bottom side of the lips. That forehead just isn't quite as bright. Actually gonna just shift all of this up. I'm kind of relying on you a little bit here. I fucked up his face. I'm on 2 different layers here. Okay, I should just do it this way. Eyeball. Eyeball. Or eye socket. Eye socket. Brow. Brow. Nose. Nose. Mouth. Top of cheekbone. Top of cheekbone. Good enough. Like, would you do well in the wild, like a survival situation? I think I have a killer instinct. I think it put back against the wall, I start fighting. I think, like, you know, being a streamer, it kind of prepares you for any sort of situation to happen. That's why it's such a high-paying job. One of the hardest. And so I feel like I'm well prepared for any sort of situation. So 2 packs and To Pimp a Butterfly. Well, some say he's not even dead. Some say that. Perhaps he's just been reincarnated. So the lyrically gifted, he's artistically gifted. So I'm just rendering like a little bit more based off of the form, and not so much trying to chase down like all the individual light sources, because it's like getting a little bit too hard to manage. And I think stuff like starts to stick out a bit too much. And it's hard to like say like something super specific while doing this. And unify that together a little bit more. 'Cause it's pretty good. Like, there's a lot of stuff that's happening here that's quite nice. I think the problem is if you put me in the wilderness, you'd never get me back. It would be like a 30-day Mr. Beast challenge, but I would go feral. I'd be like that one Japanese soldier who was stuck on that island and thought World War II never ended. You just never see the same Jake again. I'd be a changed man. Also just much bigger hand. How many chickens could you wrestle at once? A rooster, I'm probably losing a 1v1, but a chicken I can probably take, like... Wrestling implies that I can't, like, kick them. It's like basically the same thing as the toddlers question. How many toddlers do you think you could take? It's like the same stuff for you, Loaflin, like front of the legs, right? Same kind of idea about putting values like along the core of the abs. I think you can make these like a little bit stronger. Side plane in here. A lot about like kind of the keeping this very like cylindrical feel to the face. right? We have like this face is just a cylinder. It's kind of like that characteristic shape for it. And then we have like this triangle here that shows us that we're looking upwards at it. And we have kind of like general look to the nose. We have a slightly lighter values that go alongside the tops of the cheekbones, catching these areas just a little bit. Also making sure we kind of have that same amount of shape language in here. Moving on, because I'm kind of saying the same things over and over. You're welcome, Oksana. We get down to the final few. I'd put you like pretty much, yeah, I put you like kind of the same category as a lot of these guys. I would pay attention to like your head and your cranium size, by the way. There's a lot of value management in here too that like I think could just be grouped a little bit more. I think your shadows and your halftones are getting, especially your reflected lights in here, are kind of getting a little bit too close to each other for comfort. And you can really push your lights more. Like don't be afraid of like pushing something like all the way to white, especially like in the highlights, because I know in this guy specifically, like on this one he doesn't quite as much actually. Sorry. You can still push them much more though. You can push this value in way more. Create a stronger separation, and then also you can use kind of really sharp dark accents to carve out these more specific cast shadows in areas like this. Bro, bring my ship back. Oh, Poifo's thing kind of worked because I actually totally forgot about Hevo. That was money well spent. I almost completely forgot about Hevo. I can't find him. Where is he in the challenge submission? Oh, he submitted early too. You got to spend $5 to bring it back, Hevo. Hevo was not getting a crit until he said something in chat. I forgot about this guy. The McChicken Neuralizer. Holy shit. I got McChicken neuralized, man. That's all the fluoride in the McChicken, man. I started thinking about it and it activated me like a sleeper agent. Listen, one of you guys has got to donate, all right? Jacob, it looks good. I would also recommend keeping your light areas like a little bit cleaner. I think you're kind of like, you can just you should load up like a lot more Conte onto your shadows. There is like there's a lot of confusing shit going on in here. But I think you can load up a lot more Conte in your shadows and keep your lights like a bit cleaner, a little bit lighter, and then like really keep heavy on the halftones. Remember that's how light logic works. The transition is the darkest or like the fastest changing point, and this type of stuff, it stays pretty similar. Even at the risk of like sacrificing like having like super poppy highlights, I think just keeping your groups like a little bit further apart helps a lot. Oh! I just took money from 5 gifted subs. Boom! 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 We'll take out Catter too. Let's freaking go! Not even real money? What's more important than real money? Subscribers. Even Poifo knows what she's doing. Airstrike called in. Airstrike called in. Boom! Airstrike. UAV spotted. Called in the AC-130. Alright, Hiva, we got, sorry about that. Poifo. I can't fight against unlimited welder money. Catter got caught in the crossfire. I'm sorry. That was just a civilian casualty. When you call in the airstrike, you might take out a few civilians. It's just how it goes. Such is the price of war. Poifo, this looks good. I guess I have to glaze because she paid for it. Poifo, this looks good. It looks really good. It's probably the best I've ever seen. What's up, Turkey Meatball? Thanks. Welcome to Artist. Welcome to Artist. Yeah, it looks really good. It's probably the best drawing I've ever seen, ever, maybe. I actually am curious. Did you like brush vine charcoal on? Is there water involved in this? Like, I'm kind of curious how you got some of those textures because I really don't know. Or maybe you're choosing your fingers. The fading arms, legs ideas were my idea. I think Poifo said that. Yeah, Poifo said the fading legs. I know it's your drawing, Poifo. You don't need to say it's your own idea. Like, we get it. Let me. Fuck! I dropped through my pen. Let me bring in the higher resolution. Because it gets kind of crunched down here. It's hard to see how beautiful and brilliant this drawing is in every way when it's such a low resolution. I love that it's a great idea. I like that we can sabotage other people's crits, and I like that we can do it by paying me money. It's two of the best ideas ever. If you got an art rival, just slip me a 20 before the stream, they'll never get critique again. You'll keep your ops down. Where the hell is Poifo's drawing? Oh, here it is. We're not jerking the painting off. It's the greatest thing ever made. For the price of 5 gifted subs. She danced in the process, too. I don't know what that means. You guys are second group chat posting, all right? Keep it out of the stream chat. Yeah, it looks good, Poifo. You know, especially in the transitioning points, yeah, especially along some of the transitioning points in here, I think it can be nice to kind of just hatch in some charcoal marks like this with a charcoal pencil and kind of give a little bit of indication about where this is going, especially when you have like a fold that comes in like this. You can hatch out just a few strokes below it. You can stump it if you want, or you can just leave it like that. It's totally fine. And that's going to help it kind of feel like you have, you know, like a plane. You're getting like light on one side of something, and then you have like a plane that like spills outwards like this from a fold. I would recommend using a stump and kind of dragging outwards like this because it will help you a lot. Especially, I think in areas like, I gotta... You know, in areas like here, it is facing to the right, but not really. It's more like front facing, and so it does kind of get pulled into this value in here. Just some like small value adjustment stuff. This whole kind of like chest region, like you have these chest muscles that kind of pull in like this. And what's happened is it kind of makes this whole like top of the chest muscles. Let me bring down my opacity. It makes all like the top of the chest muscles, the side of the... Actually, I'll get to that in a second. all the top of the chest muscles form kind of like a flat plane here. It's facing like upwards and this way. And so it's like, it's very dark because it's getting no reflected light that's bouncing up from the bottom. And that's what makes kind of this a little bit, makes a stronger contrast for reflected lights in here. And it's the same reason why like here we have darker darks along this side, because these are facing like frontwards. You know, we're getting reflected lights everywhere that's the light's coming in and bouncing off of the ground and coming up. So like on the top of the folds in here, on the front facing planes here, on the top of the, what do you call it? Pec muscles in here, right? You actually get this like really clear delineation. And this is where I think like just throwing like a couple hatch marks in like this, does make this a lot stronger. I'm low opacity, that's why. Yeah, Jacob said he's always feels like he's fighting against grouping while like adding more detail. You know, I think a lot of it is kind of like a level of confidence of like knowing. It does come a lot from experience. Like, you know, like sometimes you look at this stuff and like, I will make a leg that looks like, you know, some of these 19th century legs, but then I'll be like, no, it's not good enough. It doesn't have enough information. And then I'll like try to cram a bunch more stuff into it, and I just end up making it worse in every way. Oh, thank you, Oksana. We got plins.
Thanks for these streams.
What the heck?
They're
are
really
plins?
helpful.
6-7. 6-7. It says 6-7, guys. What are PLNs? I'm just curious what country that is. What currency? Six, 7. I don't know what 6-7 means. People have been saying it a lot. I think it's like a sex thing, but I'm not sure. That makes me uncomfortable to talk about. You know, like it's really like easy to make a leg like this, to be quite honest. And there's a lot of times where I'm like, oh, I have to put more information in it, and then you end up like losing the group. It does take like a little bit of Poland. Let's freaking go. Opa. You end up like when you like try to cram more information in, it just makes it worse. and that's not to say that you can't have a higher level of resolution. Although like, you know, this drawing is like pretty fucking insane. Especially, you know, in areas like this. You know, and they do work top to bottom, so they probably are running out of time. But you know, even in something like this, which is like maybe a little bit more resolved, like the accenting is carrying a lot. Like a lot of what's happening here is being carried by accenting. You know, also one thing too that I want to point out here. And this is what I just described with like Poifo, like what makes the feeling of like form change, right? Like let's say we have a piece of paper and it's like this, and then we have the piece of paper, you put a bend in the piece of paper, right? So this value gets darker. Like the way that the values work for that is you would get kind of like a darker accent, and then there's like a little bit of like ambient light bouncing around in here. And so you kind of get like this general level of light for this tone, which I've just turned into like soup with the smudge brush. And then you get like a slightly stronger accent along the edge, right? So that's what I mean when I tell Poifo, like, hey, where you see like a change, like throw down a couple of hatch marks, you know, and then you can do this and kind of like smooth them out if you want. That kind of gives the feeling of a fold. It's the same thing that's happening where you have like this muscle that's coming in like this, right? Where you throw an accent on the edge, and then you just take like a dirty stump and you just kind of, and then you can take a clean stump if you want, or the same dirty stump very carefully, and just kind of drag it outwards a little bit, right? And that's all you need. And that's just in general how you make any feeling of form change, you know? Jake, what's the best free resource to learn how to draw like the masters? I am so glad that you asked, because I actually know just the place. It's called halftonestudio.art. Halftonestudio.art. It's a free resource. You go to the blog, we got a bunch of books that you can look at. We got descriptions of a whole bunch of stuff. We got references with a free guide. You just put your email in here, you get a free guide delivered straight to your inbox. And you can look at 19th century drawings, you get references, portrait sculptors. That's the best place in the world. And if you want a free resource that's not free, where there's 20% off of the drawing course on here, that's made by this guy, and it's really good. Thank you. That wasn't supposed to go to full cam. There we go. It is a good resource. It is a good resource. We have much more stuff to add to it. Yeah, so there's like little areas where I would like kind of push the form in a little bit more and then drag it out. Yeah, kind of like push in like a little bit more, some hatching and stuff like that, like in here. I think you don't use a paper stump because you're stubborn or something, probably. That's just a guess. That's just a guess based off of your character. But I'd advise that you do, and I'd advise that you use some laid paper too. You spend all that money that you spent on me on some laid paper. You can charge back it. Oh, you do? Okay. That's good. I always believed in you. God, I'm so hungry. Yeah, good stuff. It's good stuff. Just like some small ways you can push. And I bought laid paper. Let's freaking go. Okay, I will, there was somebody unnamed who just submitted at the last second, and it's showing up as anonymous, so I'm gonna critique theirs. Some sort of hacker, maybe. They're wearing a Guy Faux mask. Some sort of, maybe this is the hacker 4chan. They're in the mainframe right now. And they're patching a video, an MP4 file directly into the mainframe. And I'm gonna play this MP4 file. As soon as I find it. It's being beamed directly to my computer. It's just, it's dial-up internet speed. Here it is. Hevo. Let me take off the, Why you're like 5 months late on the Christmas music. Maybe this is just Finnish music, actually. Is this like traditional Finnish music? This must be some sort of tune of his people. My people, really. TJ Toenail Beat. I think this, don't say anything offensive, guys. This is cultural music. Holy shit, he's dabbing. Oh my god, look how wide the penguin gets on those splits. Got a little poop coming out of his butt. Wait, what's this emoji? Why is he going freak mode? Holy shit! Some length on that tongue. Alright, thank you for that. Thank you for sharing like a little tune of your culture. It's better than that one video Cat made a year ago. Sorry. I'm just mean sometimes. I'm sorry. To be honest, it's funny because I think I literally want to say the exact same thing I said to... I think just like pushing down some of the value, like pushing more Conte and like bringing some like hatches into here would like just improve it a lot. I think like it's the exact same thing I said to Poifo. You can kind of just like pull some like darker values around these areas. It's like pretty much there. Also, I would definitely bring a much sharper, harder area shadow to like cast shadows, and then like just re-strength after you like stump in the shadow like this and it gets kind of like normalized. Just like re-stump in the core. Right. And you can just take like a dirty stump and just bap, 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 bap. Oh, look at that. It's nice. It's very nice. You can create marks that kind of like move through here, move like this, and it kind of creates that feeling of pulling across this area in the chest that feels that way. It would kind of give some harder accents to the collarbone here that comes out, and I'd also make the more distinguished in the outline too, in the contour. Likewise, kind of in here, this muscle's kind of coming in and inserting. Likewise in here. Well, this looks pretty good. Yeah. You can kind of like just keep pushing these groups inside of your chest or torso just like a little bit more. Like some darker values, some more transitions. If you want to come in with like your eraser, like knock this out like a little bit. Pretty good. I think even though the underwear are white, I think this does get like a little bit darker, like right in here, just based off from memory. This is feeling like a little bit, some of the shapes in here like start to feel like a little bit generic, right? Like I think you can have kind of that thigh coming out a little bit, and then this kind of comes in, and then this kind of comes out and around. And you can really make it feel like, you know, like this is like your medialis muscle, right? And then like this whole group is your quads, and then this is your thigh muscle, right? So you want to kind of separate these two groups. A little bit. Just so they feel like two separate groups. I mean, like that. And then there's like this like tendony area here, which is bright. And then you get, this is really hard to see in the reference. It took me a little bit. You get a half tone for the kneecap, and then like the tendon of the knee comes in and gets darker in here. And that helps kind of break up the shape from feeling, you know, just like an egg. It's like a little bit too generic. This looks fine. Oh, this looks pretty good too. Yeah. All this stuff looks pretty good. Just like a few areas, I think, where you can kind of like push the forms like a little bit more. But otherwise, it's nice for sure. Your best one. A lot of people try harding. We try hard on the figure challenges. Who's the other? Where's Miss Cat? Miss Caterpillars. I was next to you when you did this one. I don't know why I phrased it that way. I was digitally next up to you. It's cool, and I really don't have much credit for you because it's so stylized that like, and you're just kind of farting around, you're just having fun, and it turned out nice, and the shapes are nice. So there's your validation, all right? It looks good. Very good. That's everybody. Thank you all for coming to the Jake Don't Draw Super Show live stream experience extravaganza bonanza Super Stram Expeditocious special. I think I'm all out of talking words for the rest of the day. Thank you for the McChickens, everybody. I appreciate you all for the subs and members and donations. My Dota time, says JDD Lover. I might go play some Dota. So if you're on the unranked ladder, where the champions fight it out in a gold level unranked games, you might just happen to see me on there. 6-7. Thank you everybody for coming to the Jake Don't Draw live stream Super Show experience extravaganza. That's all I got to say. New challenge tomorrow, by the way. I don't know what it's gonna be. I kind of just want to do a portrait. People want a composition. People want that.